this is perfect for all the candy I got tonight.
Candy and cookies and everything. T-minus 10. The time for convening has arrived, and Santa Claus has visited the council. So thank you, everyone. Welcome. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sandy Springs City Council to order for Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. Will the city clerk please make the announcements and call the roll?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I would like to remind those in attendance, please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices at this time. Individuals who would like to provide public comment at a city council meeting are required to complete and submit a public comment card in advance of the meeting. Public comment cards are available online and at the chamber entrance. Those providing public comment may be allotted up to 3 minutes to speak on their single chosen topic. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Rusty Paul.
Present.
Councilmember John Paulson. Here. Councilmember Melody Kelly. Here. Councilmember Melissa Mueller.
Present.
Councilmember Jody Rochelle. Councilmember Tibby DiGiulio. Councilmember Andy Bauman.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, have we received any public comment cards?
Yes, we've received one this evening from Theodore Davis, who is in-house tonight.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you very much. Theodore Davis III, 5230 Green Oak Court.
Could you pull that microphone around in front of you?
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, much better.
All right. I'm coming forward regarding tonight's agenda items concerning Project TS-191 around the Johnson Ferry Mount Vernon Road modifications. More specifically, I'm concerned with the large difference between the engineer's estimate and the winning bid. Now, there's no denying that project valuations are always going to vary depending on the individual or group, but in the case of the project tonight, it's still very jarring that tonight's contract involves a difference of over $6.5 million, over 70% more than the engineer's estimate. What's more, we're talking about an increase large enough that won't just require discussion on the contract itself, it will also be on amending the T-Plus budget to accommodate it. Because of this, I hope that the winning bid is examined in closer detail tonight, particularly at what is driving such a large difference between it and the original estimate. Is it the use of new sidewalks, the modifications of the roads themselves, or the installation of new traffic signals as a few possibilities? As a resident, I'd love to know exactly how the revenues are being used here. Now, I know it'll be tempting to get through tonight's agenda as soon as possible because, let's be honest, it's not exactly a short list of items under new business tonight if it goes all the way down A, B, C, D, all the way down to Q. However, given the importance of the project and the cost associated with it, I hope that's given appropriate consideration and not quickly approved for the sake of convenience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Any further?
No.
We'll close the public comment period. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. DiGiulio.
I move approval of the meeting agenda for Tuesday, December 19th, 2023.
We have a motion by Mr. DiGiulio. Is there a second? Second. Been moved by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we approve the meeting agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on approval of the meeting agenda. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor Paul.
Ms.
I
Rochelle.
move that we approve the consent agenda for Tuesday, December 19th.
Have a motion by Ms. Rochelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on approval of the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. Moving to presentations, the clerk will please read the first item.
This is agenda item 2023-342, a flag certificate presentation by the Sons of the American Revolution, presented by David Wellens, President, Sons of the American Revolution, Mount Vernon Chapter.
Mr. Wellens, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Paul and City Council.
My name is David Wellens. I'm president of the local Mount Vernon chapter of the Sons of American Revolution. We serve the Sandy Springs area, and we're one of 35 SAR chapters in the state of Georgia. Just a quick, brief history. The National Sons of American Revolution was founded by an act of Congress in 1889. It is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to promoting patriotism, preserving American history, and promoting education to our future generations about the founding principles of America. Membership is open to any male whose ancestor either fought as a patriot in the American Revolution or provided support to the American side, regardless of race, religion, or ethnic background. As one example of a service we've done, our chapter, in coordination with the Sandy Springs chapter of the DAR, presented the Liberty Tree, a trident maple that's currently in the Veterans Triangle Park across the street. We do many things like that. And there's one quick thing of interest. Sandy Springs has a patriot buried in right here about a half mile away. Private James Hooper was born in 1746, served in the 6th Virginia Regiment in 1778 under General Daniel Morgan and Captain John Stokes as a part of the Virginia Continental Line. He fought in the Battle of Guilford Courthouse, which is located today in the city of Greensboro, North Carolina. And that was a battle that was instrumental in turning back the British from Georgia and the Carolinas. He survived the war, and Private Hooper won a land grant in 1827 in Georgia, and he lived in DeKalb County. He died April 28, 1836, at the age of 89, and he's buried in Arlington Memorial Park next to the Sandy Springs Methodist Church on Mount Vernon Road. I bet he'd be amazed to think that 187 years after his death, he'd be mentioned at a city council meeting. So one of the things we do as a patriotic organization is recommend and accommodate organizations who properly display the American flag. And very quickly, what that means is that if the flag is left up 24 hours a day, it could be rain or shine, it must be lit. And if it's not lit, it must be retired at sunset every night. And the other requirement is that the flag be in good condition, not torn, dirty, or tattered. So today we're presenting two certificates to the city. One is for the city itself, and the other is for the Veterans Park across the street. And if I could get one here. Whoops. The certificate reads, this certificate of commendation is presented to the city of Sandy Springs, Georgia, in recognition of exemplary patriotism in the display of the flag of the United States of America. And it's signed by me and Shep Hammock here, who's our flag chairman. And the other one is exactly the same, except it's addressed to Sandy Springs Veteran Park. So it's with a great privilege and honor to present the city of Sandy Springs with these two certificates.
Thank you very much. We appreciate this and treasure them. I was in doubt whether I should accept these because I had a grandfather who fought on the British side, but I was saved by his son who went on the right side. So,
thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate your work.
Mayor Paul.
Madam Clerk, read the next item, please.
Agenda item number 2023-343. This is the FY 2023 Annual Audit and Comprehensive Financial Report presented by Adam Fraley of Malden and Jenkins.
Mr. Fraley.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Thank you for having me here, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I am here this evening to present, I see the presentation up there. So I'm here to present the annual audit for the city for the year ended June 30th, 2023. And up on the screen there, as well as you should, is that for me? Awesome. Thank you. On the screen there, as well as what you should have in your agenda packets, is the annual comprehensive financial report that we are rendering an opinion on, as well as the report in accordance with government auditing standards and the Single Audit Act in accordance with uniform guidance, and then also this presentation. I'm going to stick pretty much to the presentation. It hits the highlights of the audit and the results of that. But if you have any questions, feel free to jump in and ask me about any of those documents. So the first page here of the presentation is just some information about Malden Jing's governmental practice, just the qualifications we have and the expertise we have in the governmental sector, and then as well identifying the team leaders. So I was the engagement partner for the audit. We also had James Bentz, who did an independent quality review, and then Allison Whitworth was the engagement manager who was in charge of the conduct of the audit field work, the putting together reports, et cetera, and reviewing the file as well. On the next page here, so the audit opinion. So our responsibility in the audit is to follow generally accepted auditing standards in the United States, as well as following governmental auditing standards. And we did follow those standards, of course, and then ultimately we're required to issue an opinion as to the fair presentation of the city's financial statements. We issued an unmodified audit opinion. We oftentimes call that a clean opinion. What that means is that the financial statements present fairly in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States in all material respects based on our test work and our procedures performed. A little bit of the highlights of the financial results of the city for the year. So assets from June 30th, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, assets increased from about $787 million to $832 million. Included in that is an increase in cash from about $189 million to $207 million. Capital assets also increased from about $522 million to almost $541 million. Capital assets mostly being made up of infrastructure in the city, as well as some other equipment. And then liabilities actually decreased from about $270 million down to $268 million. The net of the assets and the liabilities is the city's net position, and the net position increased from about $517 million to $564 million at June 30th, 2023. It is important to note that the net position, it's different components. About $78 million of it is restricted by either enabling legislation or outside parties through grants or what have you. And then $367 million is invested in capital assets net of related debt associated with those capital assets. The remainder of that net position is unrestricted and available for future use of the city. The city's operations for the year, so program revenues, which is like intergovernmental revenues, those items that are restricted by outside parties, program revenues increased from about $43 million to $48.5 million, while program expenses increased from about $128 million to $130.5 million. And then general revenues, which is your property taxes, sales taxes, those type of revenues that aren't restricted, increased there from about $117 million to $128.7 million. The net of all of this and the increase in net position for the year was about $46.6 million. On the next page, this talks about a little bit about some of the audit scopes and procedures, just in high-level summary form there at the bottom. And then at the top, it mentions the fact that we did issue our compliance reports, both in accordance with government auditing standards and the uniform guidance, as I mentioned. We did do a single audit. That is what's required for expenditures of federal awards over $750,000. And the single audit included two major programs, the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, as well as the Community Development Grant Program. And then starting on page 7 here of the presentation, we're going to some of our required communications, which I'm not going to go over each one of these, but I did want to touch on just a couple. So we're required to talk about whether we had any disagreements with management about any accounting principles or whatsoever throughout the audit, or any difficulties in conducting the audit. And I'm happy to report that we didn't have any such difficulties or disagreements in conducting the audit or on accounting principles and of that nature. So management, finance, everyone outside of finance that we worked with throughout the audit process was very forthcoming and helpful to get us everything that we needed in a timely fashion to be able to issue these reports in time in accordance with the state's guidelines. We did not have any unrecorded or past audit adjustments. So in other words, anything that we proposed during the audit process has been reported in the city's financial statements and reflected in there, again, to make sure that they're fairly presented. And then at the bottom of page 8, there, auditor independence. I mean, this is the cornerstone of what we do. It's very important that we maintain our independence to the city and give that outside view and that outside opinion as to the fair presentation of the financial statements. So that's very important and something we have to maintain both for the period audited as well as through the audit process. Of course, the general fund is the main operating fund of the city, so I've got a little bit high-level kind of graphs here for the general fund. This is a pie chart of the city's general fund's revenues. Of course, you can see there the largest revenue source being taxes, followed by intergovernmental, and then some others in the pie there as well. And then pertaining to taxes, you can see on the next page the breakdown of property taxes versus sales taxes and then other miscellaneous taxes, as well as a 5-year trend of taxes, for each of those components over the last 5 years. And then a corresponding pie chart related to the general fund's expenditures there on page 12 of the presentation, public safety being the largest piece of that pie as far as expenditures of the city. And then ultimately a comparison of revenues versus expenditures, and this goes back over 5 years, just showing how that's behaved during that time, and you can see an excess of revenues over expenditures each year. And then similar to net position at the city's overall financial statements, the general fund net position is called fund balance. And so the fund balance for the general fund, you can see that over the last 5 years, both in total and in the different categories, being a committed, non-spendable, assigned, which is an internal assignment, or unassigned, meaning it's not tied up and available for, or not reserved or any type of manner, and available for operations of the general fund. And then this next page is rather blank. I'm happy to see that. So, in our audit, we did not have any findings this year. I like to tell everybody that the standard setting bodies with the AICPA and everybody, they set the bar low on what we have to cite as a finding. So this is a big achievement to not have any findings that we're required to report as part of our audit this year. So, big pat on the back to finance. Not only were they helpful, they did a really good job in closing out the books and making sure things were accurate.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fraley. There's no action that we need to take tonight on this. This is receiving a report, but if there are any questions that council may have, we'll allow those to be asked now.
I wanted to ask
Dr. Kelly.
Yes, thank you. The general, I think it's the slide that has the general fund revenues.
Yes, ma'am.
The pie chart. A little. I'm just having some trouble. If it can, yeah. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. It. I don't know. There's something not matching about it. So, So, for example, the intergovernmental is 10%. Is it 10%? Because it doesn't look like it's 10% on the pie chart. So 10% would, I don't think 10% would be 15.
You may be right there. I'm
So I just
eyeballing it.
Yeah. Just want to make sure.
You're right. So you're right. So that the pie chart is correct Intergovernmental revenues were $1,573,574. That percentage is incorrect. I apologize for that.
Okay.
So you can see on the pie chart there kind of the ratio, or if you will, or the size as it's made up to the whole. But that percentage is not correct.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
It would appear that it should be 1% rather than 10%.
Yeah.
And then others should be 10% then? Because others at 1%. Yeah,
I would have to look back. I could modify that and give y'all a new report for that. I'd have to look back and calculate that.
This is not right.
Yeah.
Please fix it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the intergovernmental on your chart, the intergovernmental and other got swapped in the process somehow or the other. Any other questions? All right, Mr. Fraley, thank you. Good report. We appreciate it. Just give us a good pie chart.
Thank you.
It's time of the year we are eating pie, so let's get it right. All right,
Thank you.
moving to public hearings. Will the clerk please read the first item?
This is agenda item number 2023-344. That's U230002, 6420 Roswell Road. Consideration of a conditional use permit to allow for drive-through facility in the CX3 district at 6420 Roswell Road. Presented by Planning and Zoning Manager Michelle McIntosh Ross.
Ms. McIntosh Ross.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Oh, do I sound soft?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. All right, so I'm here to present U23-0002 at 6420 Roswell Road. Staff recommends conditional approval, and the Planning Commission recommends conditional approval for this request. The request is for a conditional use permit to allow for a drive-through facility as an accessory use in the CX3 district. These maps, the zoning of the parcel at this address is CX3, which is commercial mixed use, 3 stories, and the character area is commercial mixed use. The parcels north, south, and east are the same commercial mixed use zoning and character area. The parcels to the west is residential RD18 protected neighborhood. Here, looking at our aerial, shows the site on the corner of Roswell Road, which is to the east, and Chaseland Road to the north. If you're familiar with this site, to the north of Chaseland is the Sherwin-Williams, Kudzu, and the Cubanos shopping area, and to the south, towards Cromwell Road, are the 3 vacant parcels that front Roswell Road before you get to Longhorn Steakhouse. To the west is the residential detached neighborhood of Whispering Pines. The 0.78 acre site is currently vacant and has been vacant since 2018. The previous occupant was an adult entertainment establishment called Flashers, and that was demolished back in 2020 after a fire, leaving the rough concrete pad to remain. Here are some pictures of that site. The picture to the left looks across the site towards what's left of the old La Paz restaurant, and the image to the right shows the rough concrete pad on the site. And this is from the back of the site looking towards Roswell Road. Okay, the applicant is seeking to allow a drive-through facility in this CX district, which is an allowable use via conditional use permit, which is the process we're in now. The requested drive-through is to be used as an accessory use to a bank. The applicants are proposing a 1,900 square foot, 1-story building for Fifth Third Bank. I'm just going to go to the next slide. The proposed building is oriented towards the street, and the 2 drive-through canopies and the parking are in the rear of the site behind the building. The proposal includes a bike rack, or bike racks actually, 14 proposed parking spaces, 8 of which would be pervious stalls, and also 2 stalls would be outfitted with electronic charging. In this proposal, the applicants are exceeding their required 671 square feet of outdoor amenity space. They are providing 710 square feet of amenity space and seating. The proposal's transition buffer between the Whispering Pines neighborhood meets the requirements of the Sandy Springs Development Code, which includes a 6-foot wall, a 30-foot landscape buffer, and a 50-foot setback between the west residential property lines and the drive-through components. Here are the conditions here's what we considered in making our recommendations of this application. The use is allowed in the CS districts through this conditional use permit process. The proposal, as I mentioned earlier, complies with the Sandy Springs use standards for this district, and the potential adverse impacts of the drive-through facility will be offset and minimized in this site. The drive aisles are designed to contain any queuing that may occur at the ATM and the VAT is what they call it, the vacuum tube system. And the ATM and VAT are behind the building, and of course the 50 foot from the residential neighborhood. The transition buffer will also be vegetated. The principal use is entirely compatible for this district and is permitted by right. The site improvements will start the transformation of this stretch of Roswell Road between Chaselin and Cromwell. It will incrementally help realize the goals of the Roswell Road aesthetics and traffic relief. The reduction of curb cuts along Roswell Road, the right-in, right-out that is being proposed off Roswell Road. There's also interparcel access at the rear, the beginning of that. The site design and building orientation promotes walk-ups and has bicycle facilities, as I mentioned. It meets the goals of the Next 10 by encouraging activity and human scale, and it's also pedestrian-oriented along Roswell Road. This building site plan was reviewed by the planning staff and engineers and meets the architectural configuration that would encourage a walkable environment along Roswell Road, meeting the intent of the Roswell Road and City Springs plans. The slide. As mentioned, staff and Planning Commission recommended conditional approval for U23-0002, and here are the conditions: that the conditional use permit will only be valid while permitting a drive-through as an accessory use to a bank as the principal use, and that the development of the site be done substantially similar to the site plan provided as an integral part of this application. Staff recommends approval of this application. I also want to add that the applicant is here and would like to show some information to you. It is information that has already been provided in your packet, but they are here requesting to use their time to show some slides, and of course it is up to you to allow the applicant to show that. But that is my presentation.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we got the public hearing. We'll hear from the applicant, and then we'll open the public hearing.
The material.
We typically don't receive new material. If it's already in our packet, then we already have it.
Okay.
So.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Apologies for any confusion about the presentation. It was just our Planning Commission presentation, but I'm happy to speak to that this evening. My name is Baxter Russell. I'm an attorney and zoning consultant with Dillard Sellers in Atlanta, Georgia, 1776 Peachtree Street, 30309. It's my honor and pleasure to be here tonight on behalf of my client, the applicant in this matter, Fifth Third Bank, requesting your approval for our conditional use permit for the bank drive-through to allow for a complete new development of a new branch bank at this subject property. Thank you to Ms. McIntosh Ross for her summary and presentation. I'll be brief and respectful of your time, but I do want to recap a few points and talk about some items from the site plan. If you have any questions, available to answer those after. and of course would reserve any remaining time for rebuttal. Joining me tonight, we do have members of the applicant team from out of state. We have Mr. Jeff Wagner, VP and Regional Real Estate Director for Fifth Third, and Mara Betty, Project Manager and Design Expert with Moody Nolan. So as you saw and are aware where this property is located at the corner of Roswell Road and Chaseland Road, the property being zone CX3, commercial mixed use. It's at a really interesting point as a vacant parcel backing up to a residential neighborhood. And what we're trying to accomplish with our development, and what you'll hear me speak to maybe a few times in my comments, is our desire to achieve balance at this vacant and empty site. Balance between the residential property that we back up to, the neighborhood of Whispering Pines, and the commercial designation of this property. As was described, office uses such as a bank use are permitted by right on this property. Of course, we are here requesting the CUP for the drive-through component of our bank. We feel this is an opportunity to bring a new, high-quality, but low-impact bank use with drive-through to this property. A site that's been unused and overlooked on Roswell Road since 2018, and a site that, as currently zoned, allows much more intense commercial uses by right than what we're proposing. So considering some elements of our site plan, I know you had a chance to look at that in the staff presentation. The detached drive-through is located centrally on our site, behind the building, away from the street frontage on Roswell Road. There are 2 drive-through lanes, one for the ATM and one for the VAT system, which is those tubes that run from the drive-through to the bank itself. The drive-through lanes are over 50 feet away from the closest residential property, and the drive-through components itself is over 100 feet away from the adjacent residential property. The wooded area that is there at the rear of our site will remain and actually be infilled with additional trees to provide additional wooded buffering. We will have a 6-foot screening wall as well between the drive aisles and the wooded area that backs up to the residential property, providing an additional opaque barrier between our drive aisles and parking lot and the Whispering Pines neighborhood to the back. This site was carefully designed. We're not requesting any additional variances from your city code, and we're happy to comply with that and meet all of those requirements as well. I want to speak just briefly about what Fifth Third, what's going on here, what they're hoping to do at this site. Fifth Third, originally from Cincinnati, the 14th largest bank in the country, is seeking to bring a new bank prototype to this property. If you heard any of my comments from Planning Commission, I'll repeat a bad joke, but it's not intended to be your parents' bank. This is a new bank type. Gone away are the teller windows and long queue lines. In is a focus on an open floor plan with seating areas and gathering areas to meet with your bank staff face to face. The branch is intended for open public engagement with quality customer service. The branch has a greater number of windows than you typically associate with a branch bank. Excuse me, hard to say that twice. It's intended to resemble a retail atmosphere with a coffee shop type vibe. You have a layout that provides opportunities for these employee engagements and conversations with your bank employees. Additionally, you'll see in our submitted materials that we have updated and enhanced the landscaping both internally on the site, as it's currently an asphalt lot. So of course we'll update the landscaping there, but along the frontages both of Chaseland and Roswell to really set the tone for design and landscaping for new development along this important corridor. Speaking to the balance that I highlighted before, from an intensity of use standpoint and impact to the neighborhood of Whispering Pines that we back up to, again, this is a low impact but high quality use. What do I mean by that, by low impact? The hours of operation Monday through Thursday are 9 to 5. Friday it's 9 to 6, Saturday 9 to noon. So what that means is no early mornings, no late evenings, and 3 hours of operation on the weekends. Because it's not a traditional retail, restaurant, or other use that would be permitted here, there's no similar commercial deliveries, no noises or smells associated with some of those uses, but it does allow us to activate this corner with a great commercial use. The drive-through that we're requesting is a necessary component of this branch. This branch will not and cannot be developed without that drive-through. provides customers with the important option to transact business from their car. In closing at this time, again, would reserve any remaining time for rebuttal. Appreciate the positive community meetings that we were able to have in the Sandy Springs application process. It's been a pleasure working with the planning staff. Appreciate staff's recommendation of approval for our request. Appreciate the neighborhood support that we enjoy as well. Mr. Alan Andrew is here. He is the president of Whispering Pines HOA, again, the neighborhood immediately adjacent to us. He may or may not wish to speak, but I just want to highlight him and appreciate his support throughout this process. Again, appreciate the support of Planning Commission as well. The applicant is amenable to and supportive of the conditions that are proposed for this approval. We believe it provides assurances to the community and neighborhood that only a bank drive-through will be here, not another type of drive-through. So in closing at this time, we believe that we provided a complete and sufficient application submission satisfying the city's criteria for conditional use permits, and I would reiterate our request seeking approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you. I presume since it's going to look like a coffee shop and you got a drive-through that you're prepared to provide me with a venti cappuccino when I come through?
Absolutely, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, you reserve the balance of your time. Are there any comment cards?
So we've received two, one in support and one in opposition.
All right, we'll do the support first.
Okay, we have Alan Andrew.
Mr. Andrew.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Alan Andrew at 154 Chaseland Road, President of Whispering Pines HOA. We are a 162 neighborhood located west and borders the rear of the subject property. We appreciate professionalism that all parties have demonstrated thus far in the process. Over the years, we've had to protect our borders, stress the importance of developments that enhances our neighborhood, and also support the City of Sandy Springs Master Plan. I'm here on behalf of the neighborhood requesting the City Council to approve the proposed conditional use permit allowing a drive-through facility in the CX3 district, provided the permit is awarded that the accessory structure is used as part of a bank facility only. I want to thank you for your time and consideration, and happy holidays, and I'll yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew. Next,
All right, next in opposition, we have Rhonda Smith.
Ms. Smith.
So Rhonda Smith, 76 Long Island Place, speaking to you as president of the Sandy Springs Council of Neighborhoods. As the very first gateway property within the City Springs Master Plan study area, this property has a very unique opportunity to become a welcoming commercial entity that does not perpetuate the auto-centric nature of Roswell Road with the installation of a drive-through. The overarching goal of the master plan is to transition from auto-centric to a true walkable city center. While staff's description in the package of the existing development describes a colorful history of the former Flashers site, let's just call it what it is. It's a vacant lot.
Ms. Smith, can you suspend just a moment?
Certainly.
Madam Clerk, we got to adjust the clock. It's 3 minutes per person.
Oh, no.
No. It's 10 minutes total.
Oh, I'm sorry.
for
Okay, I'm sorry.
Quite all right.
All
Thank
right.
you, sir. Again, let's just call it what it is. It's a vacant lot. And should that colorful description encourage your mental posture towards anything is better than what's there now? Is that the posture we want to look at this with, considering there is a drive-through? The Roswell Road Small Area Plan, coupled with the City Springs Master Plan public realm improvements for the streetscape, ask for a focus on enhancing the pedestrian and bicycle experience with features like lighting, sidewalks, buffers, and street trees to create a more walkable environment. The development code and streetscape standards will require all of these elements, as well all of the neighborhood transition buffer standards, a 30-foot planted buffer, and a 6-foot wall that the applicant spoke to are required. All of these elements, all of these requirements would be fulfilled regardless of the use that is developed on this site. The balance the applicant spoke to would be achieved by any use that would be developed on this site. While hours of operation and low impact sound ideal, does the drive-through provide a walkable realm? The addition of a drive-through at this key gateway to the City Springs district maintains a focus on vehicular access and conflicts with the goal of improving the public realm. An additional drive-through on Roswell Road does not support the continuing effort to reduce the number of uses dependent upon drive-throughs as a key component of a use's business model. Sandy Springs Council of Neighborhoods asks that you take these concerns into consideration as you vote tonight on this conditional use permit application for the drive-through at 6420 Roswell Road. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Any furthers?
No additional public.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the planning and zoning manager. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we adopt agenda item 2023-344, the request for Mayor and City Council consideration of a conditional use permit to allow for a drive-through facility in the CX3 district at 6420 Roswell Road.
We have a motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve agenda item 2023-344, a conditional use permit allowing a drive-through facility at 6420 Roswell Road. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Mueller.
I'm not sure if could the attorney come back up, please?
Sure. Well, that'll be his time.
Thank you.
Should he do that now, or should I?
If he chooses, he's got time to use it whenever he wants to.
You close the public hearing. I'm happy just to respond to
All right.
questions
Okay.
in that manner.
Just a question. So,
Yes.
with the drive-through, you're adding a drive-through. Was there any consideration given? I think isn't down the road. Isn't there a vacant bank that already has a drive-through? Why not just? I'm just curious why that site was selected versus that site.
Certainly. So a site selection question. Why here?
Yeah.
Why not somewhere else in the city?
Or more specifically, where there's already a drive-through that's part of the location.
So that specific site, I believe I'm familiar with the location that you're referring to. If it's possible, Mr. Jeff Wagner, who was actually involved in site selection, would he be able to come up and respond to that
Sure.
question as well?
Yes.
While Jeff is coming up to speak specifically to that other bank, I know that he took site selection very seriously, looked at different bank sites throughout the city. He'll address that one specifically, but I know that some of them, frankly, are under either not for sale, not open to being transacted, and I believe that was the case with the site that you're referring to. Mr. Jeff Wagner, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Jeff Wagner, Fifth Third Bank, 38 Fountain Square, Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm actually based out of Detroit, Michigan, but that's our corporate headquarters. So in answer to the question, and as our attorney indicated, we have spent the last 3 years trying to find a site in the Roswell corridor in proximity to downtown Sandy Springs. That's been our target area as a part of our broader expansion plans in Metro Atlanta. The two existing bank facilities that were available or technically available, one was the one that was consolidated into Truist out of BB&T, roughly across the street and about south, about a quarter mile of the site that we're discussing tonight. Regions Bank was able to secure that site, and they are now there. And they were able to, through some of the connections they had, they were able to secure that site before we had an opportunity to do so. The other facility that I think is being referred to is the Dark Cornerstone Bank, roughly across the street. That facility is not available. That was consolidated out of through another bank acquisition. Still has 7 years left on the lease, so the bank that acquired that bank is still paying that lease. The landlord is not interested in putting a bank in there at any kind of economical rate that a bank could support. They're really interested in finding a restaurant that is willing to pay a higher price, but in the meantime, it's not available. So we then had to go back to the drawing board because we inquired on both those properties and started looking a little bit further north, and that's when we came across this property that we're discussing tonight. So we, if possible, we try to find existing branch properties. We did that on State Bridge Road over in Johns Creek. We're doing it we're taking an old B of A facility in Peachtree Corners, and we're reusing that facility. That's in permitting right now. So we do that as much as possible, but in this case, there just wasn't anything available for us, and we've been working on Sandy Springs for a better part of 3-4 years now to do that. So that's kind of the story.
And I have another question. So this would be for our, I don't know if it's Michelle or Ginger, question. So if we grant this conditional use permit, and right now it's going to be tied to bank use, I believe is how the recommendation was written. The question is then, say you sell or you move or close the bank, whatever, what happens to that? Does that property, does that just stay there until whoever buys it, they would have to raise it or come for another permit to keep it associated with the property?
So the conditional use permit, as the conditions suggest, that the drive-through would only be associated with a bank, an accessory use for a bank. If another bank were to just slide right in and operate under a different name with the exact same site plan, then they can do that. If they change their site plan substantially, they would need to come back for a conditional use permit again process. Or if they change the use from a bank to something else, same. They would need to come back before and go through this process for a conditional use permit if they wanted to keep the drive.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Rochelle.
Michelle, Ms. McMurray. So if Fifth Third Bank, we let them go in with the drive-through and Third Bank there, and there's a merger and they merge with another bank, then now we have another empty bank in Sandy Springs possibly, right? Because there's nothing else that can be put there unless there's another bank, and we already have two available banks that are vacant at this time, correct?
Well, okay, so let me answer that. So something else can go in there that doesn't require a drive-through, and they can just demolish the drive-through portion, and something else could be there, a restaurant or something else.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be a bank.
Okay. So does this open us up to other applications, a lot of applications on Roswell Road in this area for more drive-throughs?
No, because the parcels in question are CX, commercial mixed use, that allows a drive-through by conditional use permit. That goes to Sandy Springs Circle. That zoning district goes to Sandy Springs Circle. South of that is CS, City Springs, and there are no drive-throughs allowed, even with conditional use permit.
Okay. I have a question for Rhonda.
Ms. Smith, can you return?
Ms. Smith. So you represent the council neighborhoods.
Yes, ma'am.
But Whispering Pines is here in favor. So I'm just curious, like...
And I think my comment spoke more to the element of the drive-through as opposed to the use. And we don't disagree with Whispering Pines with respect to how the applicant engaged. We attended the community meetings, and I spoke at length with Julie Sellers, who was representing the applicant during the course of the community meetings. We really wanted to speak to the drive-through to make sure that we were consistent with respect to our posture on drive-throughs, again, trying to achieve the walkable realm. We know that all of the elements that are spoken to with respect to streetscape, neighborhood transition buffer, all of those things are going to be fulfilled regardless of the use. They're not a bonus prize because you're opening a bank. They're not a bonus prize because you're putting in a drive-through. Right. All of those things are going to be there regardless because they're required by the code. They sound great and ideal, but no matter who moves in there, they're going to be required. And again, we wanted to be consistent with respect to our posture on drive-throughs.
Okay, so have you heard a lot of opposition?
I have not heard a lot of opposition. We discussed it at our board meeting just yesterday afternoon, and we wanted, again, our board voted to be consistent with respect to our posture on drive-throughs.
And your board represents how many neighborhoods?
Well, we represent neighborhoods as the time arises, as the umbrella advocacy group for matters of land use and policy. Anyone who comes to us, whether they're a member of Council of Neighborhoods or not, we are happy to represent their HOA or condo or neighborhood association.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any others? Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a point of, information. Planning Commission also was in favor of this. I never saw anybody talk to what they specifically said, if they said anything.
Yes, Planning Commission recommends approval of this and agreed with the conditions that we provided. It was unanimous. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Baumann.
I have a question for Mr. Lee. Just got a little refresher on council discretion as it relates to weighing in on conditional use permits. And, this is a permitted use and met the conditions, but on the scale of giving reasons to arbitrary, what's the, just, I want to understand I think I know, I just want you to confirm our posture here.
Mr. Lee, would you turn your microphone on, please?
It's still not on.
It is within your discretion to grant or deny. Without reason. Without reason.
Any other discussion?
Mayor Paul, just briefly,
Okay.
I mean, I guess, if anybody else in the council wants to weigh in, just, more banks. That's
All right.
the part. I'd love to
Are
hear from other council.
you, nobody else is asking
I'm
to be
just wondering
recognized?
if any of my other council members want to weigh in on this thing.
I will.
All right,
Again.
Ms. Rochelle.
I asked Ginger earlier today how many banks, I don't know if you found out, how many banks are there in Sandy Springs along Roswell Road? What'd she say?
She was not able to find out.
She doesn't have an answer on the number of banks.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
I guess that the neighborhood is in favor of, although we're trying to limit, I think, the number of uses for drive-throughs and promote more walkability. So it's kind of like these are offsetting. So I don't know.
Since we've been asked to weigh in, may I?
Yes, everybody gets 2 rounds, so we're working quickly through our second round.
Sometimes we're faced with a situation where we can deny something that actually doesn't look overbearing or too imposing. But we deny that, hoping that something else comes along sometime in the future. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that. This looks like a relatively straightforward application. It's not a gigantic building. It looks like a reasonable use. I know there are a lot of banks in Sandy Springs, but I think it's a good use rather than denying it and waiting for somebody else to come along. That's my take in response to you, Councilman Baumann.
Yeah.
Second round?
Yeah.
I'm going to end up voting yes. I'll just explain why. All things being equal, I'm a property rights kind of person, so I can't think of a really compelling reason to say no right now, so that's why I'm going to be yes.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-344, a conditional use permit to allow for a drive-through facility in the CSX district at 6420 Roswell Road. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-345. This is consideration of a resolution to appoint a member to the Sandy Springs Board of Appeals, Susan Major, presented by Mayor Rusty Paul.
This is, as you know, this appointment season. I have several of them that I'm going to be recommending between now and probably the 1st of February. Some of them you've already approved. This one is, I think most everyone here knows Miss Major. She's been active in the city for quite a while, active with the High Point Civic Association. For the last 8 years, Mr. Mill Mobley has been on the Board of Appeals, served as the chairman of the Board of Appeals, and he asked not to be considered for reappointment. So based on his request, I am asking you to approve Ms. Major. I think each of you received a copy of her resume in your materials. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. You've heard the report of the mayor. What's the desire of council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. DiGiulio.
I move approval of item 2023-345, a resolution to approve Susan Major as a member of the Sandy Springs Board of Appeals.
We have a motion by Mr. DiGiulio. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we approve agenda item 2023-345, appointing a member to the Sandy Springs Board of Appeals. Any discussion? Mr. DiGiulio.
Mr. Mayor and other council members, I have known Susan since I don't even know when that began. It's so long ago. It was probably in the 80s or 90s when we were trying to form a city of Sandy Springs, and Susan has been a tremendous asset, a tremendous worker and I think she has an incredible amount of knowledge about our city and our codes, et cetera, and I think she'll do an excellent job as a member of this Board of Appeals, and it's my pleasure to support her and to nominate her.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-345, appointing a member to the Sandy Springs Board of Appeals. Ms. Major, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-346. This is consideration of a resolution to authorize the submission of an application to the Arbor Day Foundation's Tree City USA and Tree City of the World's program, presented by Urban Forest Coordinator William Park.
Mr. Park.
Mayor, City Council, I'm here to present for your consideration and approval to apply and sign through the mayor our application for Arbor Day Foundation, Tree City World, and Tree City USA. We have been a member of Tree City USA for 14 years and a member of Tree City World for the past 4 years. These are high standards and high honors to hold as a community, not just in Georgia and the Metro Atlanta region, but across the entire country. There has been a new application process put forth this year that requires a signature by the mayor to verify that we are upholding our standards and holding ourselves to really achieve more. And so as I think that we should maintain this certification, this recognition, I suggest that we continue to be a member of this organization.
You heard the report of the Urban Forest Coordinator. What's the desire of council? Ms. Rochelle.
Move that we approve agenda item 2023-346, consideration of a resolution to authorize the submission of an application to the Arbor Day Founders Tree City USA and Tree City of the World programs.
We have a motion by Ms. Rochelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve agenda item 2023-346, a resolution authorizing the submission of an application to the Arbor Day Foundation and Tree City of the World program. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Baumann.
Just very briefly, since this is the topic, I just came across it the other day on HBO. If you have access to HBO, there is a new program on, looks like a documentary, called Trees and Other Entanglements. Have you seen that yet?
Not yet, sir.
But would highly recommend it, called Trees and Other Entanglements. It's beautifully shot, and for the tree lovers out there, I would suggest the program. I just came across it and sat and watched it.
Thank you for the recommendation.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-346, a resolution authorizing the submission of an application to the Arbor Day Foundation. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-347. This is consideration of a resolution to award a contract to Advanced Sports Group for turf installation as it relates to the city green turf conversion project, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract, presented by Director of Facilities and Capital Construction and Building Operations, Dave Wells.
Mr. Wells.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In October of last year, the city contractor Breedlove Land Planning to professionally design and assist the city with the City Green Turf Conversion Project. The project consists of a new synthetic turf lawn of approximately 21,000 square feet. Improvements included in the project are improved usability of the field surface for events and activities, added conduit pathways for event cabling and management, and improved aesthetics and visibility of the complex. In the selection of the turf product, staff toured 3 facilities to compare the quality, comfort, and durability of the synthetic turf. The 3 facilities were Lake Forest Elementary, which is a nationwide turf, Pace Academy, which is a Burke-style turf, and the Battery over in Cobb County, which was a Shaw-style turf. From the 3 products presented to staff, the 2-inch thick turf Shaw product, produced by Shaw Integrated and Turf Solutions, appeared to be the best value for the city green usage. It was the most resistant in heavy traffic and aesthetically natural in appearance. The city sought pricing for the Shaw product using the statewide consortium contract pricing method. Shaw was an awardee of the Sourcewell contract through a request for proposal process. Usage of this consortium contract method guarantees best pricing and experience in providing specifically desired turf field construction services and products. As a preferred Shaw product installer, Advanced Sports Group, ASG, has provided the city with a proposal in the amount of $448. There is adequate funding available in the Capital Improvement Projects account F2302 to fund this project. Staff recommends the City Council approve a contract award with Advanced Sports Group to provide the purchase and installation of the synthetic turf as it relates to the City Green Turf Conversion Project, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
All right, you've heard the report of the Facilities, Capital, Construction, and Buildings Operations Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve Agenda Item 2023-347, a resolution to award a contract to Advanced Sports Group for turf installation as it relates to the City Green Turf Conversion Project, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
Motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve Agenda Item 2023-347, an award of contract to Advanced Sports Group for turf installation related to the City Green Turf Conversion Project. Any discussion?
I have some
Ms.
questions.
Mueller.
So, Dave, just a question. So on maintenance going forward, is there ongoing yearly maintenance that has to be performed on the turf?
There will actually be daily maintenance on it. Part of this proposal is the equipment for our staff to help maintain it. Plus, we'll have a contract with the ASG to come out once a year to do a prep of it and everything, any kind of damages, infill and stuff like that.
So that's part of this contract, or would that be like it's included, but then there could be repairs that would be on top of that?
That would be on top of that, yes.
Okay. And then since the cistern's underneath the green, is there going to be a special, cutout or something so that we can access the cistern?
So the cistern access points are actually up by the restroom building on the hardscapes.
Oh, okay.
But there are multiple access points that we built into this bypass system that'll be put into this. That was the reason we waited for the full design of this project, because we're waiting for the bypass system to be installed so we could put in the hatch covers with this synthetic turf. You shouldn't be able to see it, but it will have access points inside the city green, yes.
And just a question about tents being anchored. We often have events that have tents. Can tents be anchored? Will that damage? Or I
have Chip Brown here, which is our architect. I'm going to have him come up here and talk a little bit more about the project, about the product of it. So, Chip.
Thank you, Dave. My name is Chip Brown. I'm president of Breedlove Land Planning. We did have extensive conversation with Shaw, who develops the turf, and in talking with city staff, the method of anchoring is with concrete blocks with ropes or cables that hold the tents. And Shaw indicated that for limited use, for 1 to 2 weeks, that will not damage the turf. But what we cannot do is drive any physical anchors into the turf. But we have talked with Shaw and ASG, and they stand behind the turf and say that it will stand up to that type of anchoring system.
Okay, so it's just top anchor, nothing drive. So then we'll just have to make sure whoever rents it can't be driving stakes down in. And then are there any current uses today, Dave, that would have to change or be altered tomorrow because we have the turf?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean,
Okay.
this will just improve our ability to have events out there, but I don't know.
Okay.
What are they?
I don't know if that was creating any restrictions.
Right now, for your first question there, we don't allow anybody to penetrate the soil as it is right now. Just we have an irrigation system out there. That irrigation system will actually come up. But it'll be it'll be heavy blocks like the Food the Rocks when they come in with their big tents. There'll be big blocks that they put on top of this turf.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson, Ms. Rochelle.
So 2 quick questions. One, this is not competitively bid. This is bid through the, what did you call it? The Sourcewell contract. So the Sourcewell contract isn't a contract that we solicited for this project. It's something that's solicited by who?
This is off a statewide contract, which is
I'm just curious because it's something of almost $500,000. A lot of times we'll just go bid it. I'm wondering why we didn't bid it here, or what's the reason why you didn't think that was an important step to take?
So the Sourcewell contract has been competitively bid on a statewide level. So
when?
I'd have to.
This actually, Shaw was awarded in 2000.
Let me help out here. Mr. Paulson, the state, much like the GSA, often bids out bids out different kinds of materials and things. And you can buy it off a state contract, and they have to guarantee that they will not sell it to anybody else at a lower price.
And that's applicable here?
That's applicable here.
Okay.
And that is also consistent with, so when we went into the budget last year, when you guys allocated the money for this project, Breedlove provided us with an estimate, and that's consistent with their estimate. Yeah, I'm sorry. When we went into budget season last year, when the council allocated the money to this project, Breedlove's estimate was right around that, we were right around the 400,000 mark with the project.
Yes. Ms. Rochelle, then Mr. Baumann.
Is the skating rink going to be on the, because it's been really fun watching all the kids and everybody.
We're still discussing the location of the skating rink for next year. We had tentatively planned to move it over to what I call the Serpentine area, which is in front of City Bar behind the pop-up, but we'll have additional conversations about that.
Mr. Baumann.
Yeah, so I actually wonder, well, a couple things. Is that's the sample? It looks very plush.
This is. Would you like to touch it?
I mean, I just want to know if you can run on it. I mean, people do
rubber. They're filled with rubber.
Well, I mean, it's not. I'm sorry.
It's infilled with crumb rubber.
Okay, but it looks thick, and you can. It's sports competitive. You know, I mean, we're not doing team sports out there, but we're doing a lot of fitness classes. It's compatible with that.
Yes, so this is what they consider a landscape/playground turf. The competitive athletics turfs are similar, but they're not as plush. There's not as much fiber in them. And this particular product was chosen because it is at the Battery at Truist Park, which gets an extreme amount of use.
Is it the green, but in front of the screen? Okay, so people are running around there. The other question is, what is the heat? How much heat does it retain in the 100-degree weather we get? And do you recommend cooling it down at all, or hosing it down to cool it off? Or
so in extremely dry conditions, that is an option. One of the issues that we do have, we've been designing these fields since the early 2000s. We always put irrigation systems on them. What happened was the humidity rose so much that then they became unsafe. But this particular product is a sand-filled system with what Shaw calls a hydro chill. It's an actual additive that goes in that drops the surface temperature of the turf anywhere from 25 to 30 degrees. So, but these fields will be hotter than natural grass. That's just the nature of what synthetic turfs are. But the hydro chill, again, will give you a 25 to 30 degree cooling effect.
Any further discussion? Dr. Kelly.
I just have a sort of a process question. It may be more of a city attorney question. I was curious about why this item is not a PFA item. Well, he's busy, but I don't know if anybody can answer that. But just
City attorney, we have an inquiry.
yeah, I have a quick question. I was just wondering why this item isn't a PFA item, or why it's not a public facilities versus being in a council meeting.
The biggest reason is PFA doesn't have any money.
Okay.
The city's the one that buys things.
Okay.
And it was included in the city budget.
And generally, the city rents the facility from the Public Facilities Authority, so it would be acting as a tenant in purchasing this.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-247, a resolution to award a contract to Advanced Sports Group for turf installation related to the City Green Turf Conservation Project. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-348. This is consideration of a contract award to Vertical Earth, Inc. for the construction of the Crest Valley Drive drainage maintenance and improvement project presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Staff recommends a contract award be made to Vertical Earth for the construction of a stormwater drainage improvement project between 1025 and 1075 Crest Valley Drive. In 2023, the city engaged an engineering firm to develop plans for embankment stabilization as well as repair and or replacement of a culvert head wall upstream of the roadway between 1025 and 1075 Crest Valley. The project aims to protect the existing infrastructure, replace the failing culvert head wall, and bring the drainage system up to current standards. Project scope consists of the following: tree removal and clearing, demolition of existing 84-inch corrugated metal pipe head wall, construction of a reinforced concrete head wall with stone veneer, replacement of some 22 linear feet of 18-inch corrugated metal pipe with 18-inch reinforced concrete pipe, filling of voids around that 84-inch corrugated metal pipe culvert, rehabilitation of the 84-inch culvert, riprap installation, and final restoration of the construction areas. Performance period for this project is some 120 days. In October of this year, the city issued an ITB, invitation for bids, seeking bids from qualified contractors. The city received 2 bids, one from Vertical Earth, $386,414.14, and Site Engineering at $551,320. Upon review of the responses, staff recommends award be made to most responsible and responsive bid of Vertical Earth in the amount of $386,401.14 compared to the construction budget for the project of some $400,000.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Baumann.
Move adoption of agenda item 2023-348, approval of the contract to Vertical Earth for the Crest Valley Drive Drainage Maintenance and Improvement Project.
We have a motion by Mr. Baumann. Is there a second? Second. Been moved by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2023-348 and a contract award to Vertical Earth for the construction of the Crest Valley Drive Drainage Maintenance and Improvement Project. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-348, approving a contract award to Vertical Earth for the Crest Valley Drive Drainage Maintenance and Improvement Project. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-349. This is consideration of approval for the mayor to sign the LMIG application signature page and cover letter for submittal by Public Works to the Georgia Department of Transportation for the fiscal year 2024 Local Maintenance and Improvement Grant, presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and council, in this case, staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the attached list of streets, the Local Maintenance and Improvement Grant application and cover letter for consideration by the Georgia Department of Transportation for FY 2024 LMIG program. On an annual basis, GDOT allows submissions by local governments for funding of needed projects within the city, county, or state rights-of-way. In furtherance of Operation Pave-On, the Public Works Department has compiled a list of roads in need of resurfacing to submit to GDOT for funding under the Local Maintenance and Improvement Grants program. Prioritized list is due to GDOT by February 1st of 2024. The attached list represents 3.56 miles of roads that are in need of resurfacing and were included, as a matter of fact, in our bid for the FY24 resurfacing program project, which we'll bring to you in just a moment. The streets submitted represent those with low PCI scores within the city's network and those that are logical to complete in conjunction with lower-ranked streets. There is a required 30% match to the LMIG. The city's LMIG distribution in this particular year will be $1,021,911.35. The estimated amount to complete this work, which includes all items necessary to complete the resurfacing of these roads, is $1,336,553.73. It's recommended the city submit work in excess of the necessary amount to ensure expenditure of the entire grant, plus the required 30% match. The proposed street list includes Highbrook Drive, Jet Ferry Road, Monticello Drive, North Mill Road, Powers Ferry Road, and Sky Ridge Drive. And segments within those roads come to a total of some 3.56 miles. Those roads were selected from the master list of all roadways being repaved with the FY24 program to meet and then slightly exceed the required minimum here from GDOT to qualify for the LMIG grant this year. So with that, staff recommends approval of the submittal package so that the city can then submit to GDOT for the LMIG dollars.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2023-349, Approval for the mayor to sign the LMEG application signature page and cover letter for submittal to Public Works to the GDOT fiscal year 2024 local maintenance and improvement grant.
I have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve agenda item 2023-349, a LMIG application for submittal by Public Works to the Georgia Department of Transportation for FY24. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Ms. Kelly,
All right.
Dr. Kelly.
Hey, Marty. I just wanted to know, in general, can LMIG funds be used for sidewalks?
It could be used for other programs within the city. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just curious. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-349, approval of the LMIG application for submittal by the Public Works Department of Georgia GDOT for the fiscal year 2024 LMIG program. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-350. This is consideration to approve a contract award to Blunt Construction Company, Inc. for the FY 2024 Local Maintenance Improvement Grant Paving, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract, presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and council, tonight staff recommends a contract award to Blunt Construction Company to provide the FY 2024 Local Maintenance Improvement Grant Paving Program and request authorization for the city manager to execute that contract with Blunt. In 2021, the city of Sandy Springs consultant NBS Technologies presented its findings for the FY 2021 Pavement Condition Index study and performed an assessment of all city-owned streets. Based on these findings, MDS recommended a list of streets by year for resurfacing. We're now in the third year of that three-year program, FY 24 streets, with PCI scores ranging for these streets to be repaved this year in the range from 38 to 58. In the interest of seeking a qualified contractor to perform the work for FY24, City issued an invitation to bid for this paving project on September 13th of this year. Pre-bid conference was held on September 26th. 6 bids were received prior to the October 27th deadline, to include Blunt Construction Company at $7,972,142.84, as well as bids from Northwest Georgia Paving, Vertical Earth, Stewart Brothers, Magnum Paving, and E.R. Snell, with a high range at the high bid end of $10,976,485. The bids received were evaluated by staff. Based on the review and analysis, staff recommends that the city award this contract to Blunt Construction, who submitted the lowest, most responsive and responsible bid in the amount of $7,972,142.84. With that, staff recommends award.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2023-350, approve contract award to Blount Construction Company for the fiscal 24 local maintenance improvement grant paving, and to authorize city manager to execute the contract.
Motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve agenda item 2023-350, a contract award to Blunt Construction for FY24 local maintenance improvement grant paving. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
A point of clarification, Marty, we just approved the mayor to sign a cover letter for the 2024 LMEG to the tune of a little over $1 million.
Yes, sir.
And then we're doing this. The one we just approved is in addition to what we're talking about here?
It will be a companion to. So we have the T3000 budget for paving. That's where the overall 7.5,
yeah.
The $1 million will be a companion to that, those overall dollars.
It's in addition, or it's part of the 7.5?
It's part of.
It's part of the 7.5?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-350, approving a contract award to Blunt Construction for local maintenance improvement grant paving. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-351. This is consideration of an ordinance to amend the FY 2024 City of Sandy Springs T-SPLOST budgets. This is presented by Chief Financial Officer Tony Carlisle.
Ms. Carlisle.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and Council. This is a request to amend the FY 2024 T-SPLOS projects budget by reallocating $1 million of uncommitted T-SPLOS funds to the Johnson Ferry Mount Vernon Road Intersection Improvement Project, or TS-191, under the T-SPLOS 2016 program. There are additional right-of-way needs and other anticipated costs which require an additional $1 million to complete the project. There are adequate funds in the T-SPLOS 2016 program available for use, resulting in no direct financial impact to the city.
You've heard the report of the Chief Financial Officer. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-351, consideration of an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2024 City of Sandy Springs T-SPLOS project budgets.
We have a motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we approve agenda item 2023-351, an ordinance amending the FY24 City of Sandy Springs T-SPLOS budget. Any discussion? Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. Ms. Carlisle says we currently have $1.9 million left in the T-SPLOS money that's uncommitted. We're spending $1 million here, so we have $900,000 left. How many more 2016 projects are hanging out there that we're going to have to fund going forward, or is this the last one we're doing?
I
Does that make sense?
I think my count, Alan, at this point is 3 projects still. Peachtree Dunwoody Road, Side Path, Brandon Mills Sidewalk, and TS 192. I believe that's our count. So that's the 3 that we have out there still.
And those 3, they're already funded, or we don't have a price for them yet? My worry is we're going to run out of T-SPLOS money by $1 million if we approve this, or do we need this for something else, or are the other projects going to get covered in another way?
Yes to all of those responses you just gave me. Yeah, so we're expecting great budget growth. We'll talk about the 191 contract award here in a minute. Not so much great budget growth, but great cost growth on all of the above, sir. So we'll likely look for other avenues as well to support funding these final projects.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Question.
Ms. Mueller.
So, Marty, I think that the question, if I understand it, was after we approve this, we'll have $900,000 left, but it sounds like your response is the need for the funding for the remaining projects
Could well be greater.
could be greater.
Yes, ma'am.
We are working
Regardless of 900,000 left over at this point.
We're working to true up some of the remaining projects that haven't been completed yet, or they have cost savings in them, so that we'll be bringing that back to you for a discussion. We're also looking at some other outside funding opportunities to help bridge the gap, because as the Public Works Director said, we have had significant cost growth in all of these projects due to the pandemic and the inflation over the last few years.
And when will that be coming back to us? And here's why I'm asking. I keep thinking we need to be finished with the 2016 T-SPLOS, and we never seem to be, but it looks like we're getting closer.
Yes,
so
sir.
Maybe the presentation you're going to bring back to us is the status of 2016 so far and what's remaining and how do we deal with it. And that's a good topic to have so we can finish this up. All right, thank you.
Well, let me interject this. You know, when we did these cost estimates in 2016, you know, we've had a substantial amount of inflation over the last 3 years, significant amount of material costs and the supply chain challenges. And so as these projects at the end of the pipeline come up, we're going to have to complete all of them. It is very likely we are going to have to dip into some other capital funds to complete them. That's just the facts of life. So we got to be prepared to have that conversation, because there will not be enough money in the T-SPLOS 2016 funds to be able to complete these projects. So we have to start doing some triage. And this is step 1 in that triage process. We'll use all the T-SPLOS funds first, and then we're going to have a conversation about pulling from other capital sources. That's just a fact of life. Ms. Rochelle.
Why? So we're just transferring $1 million and not 1.9, but we're going to need a lot more than 1.9 to make up the difference for the 191, right?
The million, and Alan and Tony, correct me if I'm wrong on this, the million covers the estimated expenses to date on TS 191. Covers right-of-way cost as projected right now. It covers the support cost associated with delivering the project, CEI, construction, engineering, inspection, support, et cetera. Alan, I believe I'm correct in that statement. So we have, with this transfer now, we have covered the expenses as we estimate them today, with not all items closed yet. There's still right-of-way items, for instance, outstanding with final cost against them for TS 191.
So then the remaining 900,000, you might come to us later for the 191 or for different projects?
It may be required to finish off real estate for 191, should costs go up. It may be, it may be required for other projects, those outstanding projects that we still have in the 2016 program as well.
Okay.
Ms. Mueller.
So I think that, so this is for the 2016, and then we have a budget, right, that for the 2021, that was the next T-SPLOS,
Yes, ma'am.
is that correct?
Separate.
So I guess that, I also think that since it took us so long to do these projects, that kind of was against us, that wasn't in our favor, the costs went up. So I would just ask that when we start to work on the next set, how can we make sure that we're completing them faster, where we don't face the rising costs? I know you can't answer that right now, but I just think that's something we need to think about.
Right. No, certainly something to consider. I think we've had what I would characterize as unprecedented construction inflation for the last few years. Pandemic just served with supply chain impacts here to accelerate construction inflation beyond what anybody would reasonably have anticipated here in the past few years.
Nobody's expressed frustration about the pace of projects than me. But we have to accept the fact that we lost 18 to 24 months to the pandemic when nothing was happening. And so as a result, we lost that time through no fault of anybody's. And as a result, costs have gone up because of the disruptions related to the pandemic. And so this council is going to have some conversations about how we complete projects, or if we complete projects. That will be coming in the future. Right now, we have enough money in the pot to be able to complete a couple of important projects. And then as we get further down the road and we see what the cost of these other three projects are going to be, then we'll have to make some hard decisions. Right?
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-351. An ordinance to amend the FY24 City of Sandy Springs T-SPLOS budget. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-352. This is consideration to approve a contract award to Vertical Earth Inc. to construct the Johnsons Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway Intersection Improvement Project, that's TS 191, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract. Presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
As the title states, staff recommends contract award be made to Vertical Earth for construction of TS 191, the Johnson Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway Intersection Improvement Project. This T-SPLOS funded project will improve vehicular and pedestrian mobility and reduce congestion in downtown Sandy Springs by alleviating the bottleneck conditions that exist for east-west traffic on both Johnson Ferry Road and Mount Vernon Highway. And as you're very well familiar, now currently a one-way pair, at the intersection of north-south traffic on Roswell Road, where because of the proximity between those two intersections, Johnson Ferry and Roswell Road, Mount Vernon Road and Roswell Road, very limited queuing, stacking distance available between those intersections to provide any effective traffic movement there. As well, it's compounded just to the east by the intersection of Boylston into both Mount Vernon and Johnson Ferry that further knots up this particular heart of Sandy Springs. Both Mount Vernon Highway and Johnson Ferry Road will be widened to contain an eastbound and westbound lane in each direction, plus a center two-way left turn lane that can transition to a full left turn lane at intersections. 12-foot wide multi-use paths will be constructed on the inside shoulders of Mount Vernon Highway and Johnson Ferry, and with 6-foot sidewalks on the outside shoulders. The project also adds, importantly, to the mix, a new north-south connector road just east of the Fulton County Library to move vehicles between Mount Vernon Highway and Johnson Ferry Road, further enhancing effective traffic movement here in the area. With that crossover road just west of the library to be eliminated. Signals are upgraded throughout the project as a part of this work, with new signal infrastructure at both intersections on Roswell Road. On September 27th of this year, the city issued an ITB for this project, invitation to bid, seeking bids from qualified contractors. A pre-bid meeting was held a month later, October 27th, and the city received, by the deadline of November 29th, 2 bids. One bid from Vertical Earth in the amount of $15,881,593.58, and another bid from Baldwin Paving at $20,323,892.44. Upon review of the responses and review of the bids with our consultant in this case through their CEI group, the city recommends award to the lowest responsible and responsive bid, Vertical Earth, in the amount of $15,881,593.38. There is now sufficient funding within the project to award this contract, TS 191. With that, staff recommends award.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve Agenda Item 2023-352, the approval of a contract award to Vertical Earth, Inc. to construct the Johnson Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway Intersection Improvements Project, TS-191, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
We have a motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second? Been moved by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve Agenda Item 2023-352, a contract award to Vertical Earth to construct the Johnson Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway Intersection Improvement Project. Any discussion? Ms. Mueller.
So Marty, just can you, we had the public comment, who talked about the estimate. Our engineer estimate was, $9.5 million? And
yes, ma'am.
This came in, I think it was 15 and then 20. What is accounting for that?
And
difference?
if I could, Alan, if I could ask you to join me. We did ask our consultants, CEI, like Construction Engineering Inspection side of the house at Jacobs, to look at this in great detail as well. And in the case of these bids and where the greatest differences were, they were, as typical, greatest within grading complete as a single cost item, and the other being traffic control. Significant variance there. The material cost were, I think, Alan, as I've read the assessment, not so great in variance against those. Concrete and steel are at what they termed record high prices right now. That's a function of supply chain, et cetera. But grading complete and traffic control especially reflect the very complex and complicated nature of this construction project, where we're rebuilding roadways under traffic, adding new signals, improvements on Roswell Road, within an already developed and infrastructure-intensive portion of the city. Projects fraught with potential delays for any contractor along the way. We've got a significant utility relocation that's a companion to this project. Great thanks to Dave and his folks for getting Veterans Park completed as much as they could. So we removed that, at least that moving part has been removed from the equation. But these contractors, I believe, see a very complicated, complex potential for delay and potential for cost increase along delay project as they move forward through this. We recognize the need. The other thing you'll see by the bids, Alan, I've asked you up and now I don't give you a chance to talk, but anyhow, it's a $9 million estimate just from the engineer. We saw this as a bigger project than we're normally bidding here in Sandy Springs. This is one of our bigger transportation projects. So early on this calendar year, back in January, February timeframe, we had a contractor day, contractor information day here in City Hall, held it over in the Barfield. Invited all of the contractors who we normally do business with and others we'd like to do business with to come in and see us and hear about our programs, this project included. include the basics about the project and when we expected to bid them, scope, et cetera, those projects. Unfortunately, even after that outreach and continued outreach we've had to have with the construction community, we only received 2 bidders, and that was with a 60-day bidding period. We did overlap a little bit the Thanksgiving holiday, so there is that little bit of time, but this was twice the bidding period that we normally put out for our construction projects, transportation projects, in the interest of trying to bring the contractors in to get their interest and give them enough time to give us reasonable numbers. Yet after all that outreach, the increased bidding period, et cetera, we still only get 2 bidders. Both bidders, in this case, very good contractors for the city in years past. They've successfully delivered good quality projects for us. Go ahead, Al.
Sorry, this is actually relevant. I had a meeting with the other T-Splosh cities yesterday, and they were echoing the same issues, Roswell, Johns Creek, and they're getting 50%, 60% bids over, and they're getting, actually Fulton County has said, are you getting more than 1 bid? So at least we got 2 on this one, and we've gotten more on others. So they're running into the same issue that we're running into, and as Marty mentioned, material, steel and concrete are still at an all-time high, and the GDOT estimating software that the consultants use haven't been able to keep up. We did do another cost estimate recently to try to catch some of this, and it did go up, but there was the grading complete was a big factor of the difference in what the contractors gave us and what the engineer's estimate was, and that's kind of where, and the traffic control. That's where some of the issues are. But other jurisdictions are seeing the same thing. And the other challenge we've got is GDOT has these big, giant managed lane projects, and so the other jurisdictions also said they see contractors are just saying, well, I'll just throw out something a lot higher, and if I get it, I'll find the resources because I've got all these GDOT contracts, and a lot of folks are waiting for the GDOT projects to come about too.
I have another question.
Ms. Mueller.
So can you scroll down, whoever's controlling? It said that the project budget is $10 million, but yet we're going to be approving 15.8, and then it says there's money in the budget. So I'm not understanding the difference of the numbers there. You were approving something that's more than the budget. Am I reading that correctly?
The amount that's being approved is the amount remaining in Munis is more than enough to cover the bid that we have now. Now, with the projections of other additional right-of-way costs coming up, the construction budget was $10 million.
Okay, so it's just I'm sorry, so that's a construction budget.
Yeah, so if you look at, we've got $23 million in TS-191, TS-192 also has a similar amount. Those are the budgets we've got, but with the projected amounts, for instance, we've got some right-of-way we're going to be doing tonight. We've got some other.
Yeah, I understand
That's
now.
what
Thank
it is.
you.
Yes, ma'am.
It was the construction budget, which is part of it.
Correct.
Okay.
Ms. Rochelle.
You mentioned traffic control, and when is this project going to start? And I think it's really important that we let everybody know, as many people as possible, what's going on, because there's so much traffic on both of those. So it's really important that we communicate. And
so within the plans, there's a deliberate, and we'll call it a phasing or a staging plan for how the contractors to organize and stage traffic to keep the roadways under traffic while they build the new roadways here. So as we go through each of those steps, working with the contract, we'll message out to everyone, here's what's next, here's what the new condition will be, et cetera, as we stage through that. Adding the connector road in will widen. If you notice, there's a portion of Veterans Park on the south edge that wasn't completed for a purpose. We'll borrow some of that space for temporary travel lanes while we move traffic around over here on the project.
Also, I want to talk about bike lanes. Are there going to be designated bike lanes on, or is it going to be part of the multimodal?
It's part of the multimodal or the multi-purpose side pass in this case. So the 2 paths on the inside of Johnson Ferry and Mount Vernon Highway will be bike ped facilities combined. No bike lanes within the roadway proper.
So I've seen in other cities where like one half is for bikes and one half is for pedestrians. Is that possible? Do we have that in the plan? Can we talk about it?
We haven't implemented that anywhere yet. We've already implemented multi-purpose paths around City Springs without the need to do that yet. We can certainly explore that as we add more paths throughout the network. Not particularly called out in this project right now, though. No, ma'am.
Yeah, I would. I'd like to explore that because I think it's dangerous to ride in the street, but it's also dangerous when pedestrians and bikes, especially with a lot of electric bikes that go pretty fast now, that since it's going to be a clear path to City Springs, it's something that we should
It's been a
look
discussion as we've implemented the side paths, yet we haven't come up with a series of guidelines yet to implement that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-352, approving a contract award to Vertical Earth to construct the Johnson Ferry Mount Vernon Highway intersection improvement project. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-353. This is consideration of an ordinance to amend the FY 2024 City of Sandy Springs budget for the purposes of an increase in the Fulton County Animal Control Services, presented by Chief Financial Officer Tony Carlisle.
Ms. Carlisle.
Mayor and Council, staff is recommending an amendment to the FY24 budget to increase funding to support animal control services provided by Fulton County. We are recommending an increase of $171,000 from the general fund balance to support the general administrative line item. Fulton County provided an analysis of the costs associated with the animal control services. These costs total $12.1 million annually, of which 3.27% of the cost has been allocated to the City of Sandy Springs based on responses within our city. The IGA increased our costs to approximately $396,000, of which we'd already budgeted $225,000. The new IGA is for a period of 5 years, effective January 1, 2024, and extends to December 31st, 2028. The financial impact is adding $171,000 from the general fund balance to the general administrative budget line.
All right, you've heard the report of the Chief Financial Officer. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Dr. Kelly.
I move approval of agenda item 2023-353, an amendment to the fiscal year 2024 City of Sandy Springs budget for the purposes of an increase in Fulton County Animal Control Services.
You have a motion by Dr. Kelly. Is there a second? Moved by Dr. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve agenda item 2023-353, an ordinance amending the FY24 City of Sandy Springs budget for the purposes of an increase in Fulton County Animal Control Services. Let me kind of comment on this one a little bit. This one's caused an awful lot of consternation among all of the cities of Fulton County. We all know that Fulton has built a new animal shelter off of Fulton Industrial Boulevard. It's a significantly more expensive facility than they'd been operating in the past, so we anticipated some costs would go up. But this is significantly more than I think anybody anticipated. There's been a lot of discussion among the other cities, particularly of North Fulton, about alternatives. We don't have time this year to consider and identify any additional alternatives, so we have very little option other than to go ahead and budget the money because we are required to have animal control. And we have to pay somebody to do it, and Fulton right now is the only one that we can do. But there is conversation among the cities, at least in North Fulton, to explore. I think most of the cities are going to approve their portion of this cost. But there is some conversation that may be had over the next 12 months at looking at alternatives. Not sure that there are alternatives, but I think most of the other cities of North Fulton are willing to at least engage in conversation. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll keep you in the loop. But right now, if we want to provide animal control, which we are required to do, then we have to pass this budget amendment. So any further discussion? Dr. Kelly.
Ms. Carlisle, I was wondering if you knew or if you had the information with you regarding how much is in our fund balance or how much is in that account. You may not.
Just looking at what we've just received from the auditors, I can't give you the exact number, but I'm confident in saying we have the $100,000
Just curious.
available
Okay.
for this request.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you. This may be a question for the city manager. Can you just give me a general overview of what exactly animal control services are? Like,
Sure.
specifically, yeah.
So the way that it's contemplated within the IGA that is attached to the next agenda item, whenever a resident calls Fulton County Animal Control to report a stray dog, a stray cat, a rabid dog, a raccoon, a possum, any of those things, Fulton County Animal Control will have 24 hours to respond to us. Now, of course, if there is a deer or something that has been struck and is not dead, PD does respond and take care of those issues, so that does not result in an animal control call. We are working to have a better sense of the call volume. The numbers fluctuate greatly from year to year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the next agenda item. But this IGA does preserve the ability of our residents to call animal control directly rather than calling 911 and us having to send a police officer out before animal control is dispatched.
All right. Thank you.
Well, it's my experience that if you've got 24 hours, if you've got a stray dog, that dog's not going to be there when you get there within 24 hours later. So that's the service response is also an issue that is concerning. So there'll be a lot of issues that'll be taken up as we go forward. Mr. DiGiulio.
Do we know how many calls for service we actually had in the past 12 months for animal control?
Yes, sir. The number that Fulton County provided to us is that we had 567 responses to Sandy Springs last year. Now, in comparison, I think it is worth noting, the City of Atlanta had 9,399. South Fulton had 3,509. East Point had 1,149. Union City had 801, and we came in fifth at 567.
Well, to quote the great mayor of Palmetto, we're charged per call. And he swears he's paid for the same dog multiple times because multiple people see the dog and call. And every time the call goes in, you get charged for that dog. So, there's a lot of questions about this. There's no question. And it's not something that I don't think city staff nor I am happy having to recommend to you. But as of tonight, we don't have very many alternatives. We have, though, 12 months to start having conversations with our allies on the north end and maybe some other parts of Fulton County as well about other options, and we'll see where that leads.
Yes.
Yeah, the county is required by state law to provide animal control service. They have to. It's an option for us.
Quick question.
Sure.
Is this just for live animals, or who does the road cleanup?
That's Pro Cutters. We pay for that already through our public works, what we term subcontracts.
So if somebody sees of whatever animal,
If they call the call center.
if they call the call center, we respond to
Yes,
that?
we do.
Mr. Paulson.
Confusion here. You say we have 12 months to reevaluate this. This is a 5-year contract. Can we get out of this thing in
We
1 year or
can.
2 years?
Yeah.
We can? Okay.
That's something everyone has insisted upon. Any further discussion? Ms. Rochelle.
You said that we get charged for each phone call, not necessarily when they go out. They didn't go out 500 and something times?
They have told us that they responded 500.
Okay, so we get charged per response. Okay.
Right. But they may respond to several phone calls. So they may be the same animal. It's hard to know. It's hard to know. I mean, there's no way to know for sure. But as I said, the great Clark Bodie of Palmetto had some choice things to say about how many times he's paid for the same dog. So, all right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-353, an ordinance amending the FY24 City of Sandy Springs budget to increase in Fulton County Animal Control Services. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-354. This is consideration of a resolution to approve an intergovernmental agreement with Fulton County, Georgia for the provision of animal control services and to authorize execution of the same. Presented by Captain Ryan Finley of the Sandy Springs Police Department.
Captain Finley.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The city staff recommends entering into an intergovernmental agreement with Fulton County to provide animal control services within the corporate limits of the city. July 1st, 2014, the City of Sandy Springs entered into an intergovernmental agreement with Fulton County for the purpose of authorizing the county to provide animal control services to the city. The current agreement expired in December 2022, with an extension of 365 days to provide or to properly estimate the share of the total cost to operate the animal services program. The county has calculated an amount of $12,103,840 as the total annual shared cost of the program for 2024, with each jurisdiction responsible for payment amount based on its proportional monthly call for service. The cost of shelter and field operational services, as well as the payment amounts for each jurisdiction, can be found below, as we've previously discussed. If approved, the county will be responsible for providing animal control services to the city, including but not limited to enforcement of the Georgia Animal Control Act, responding to requests for animal control services, providing rabies control, investigating cruelty complaints and animal bites, and operating an animal shelter. The new agreement is for 12 months from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024, with 4 automatic renewals commencing on January 1st of each year, terminating on December 31st, 2028. A mutual agreement is required to extend these services at the end of the contract term. The cost of the service has increased to an estimated $396,000, of which $225,000 was budgeted in fiscal year 2024.
You've heard the report of the Captain for Administration. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul?
Dr. Kelly.
I move approval of agenda item 2023-354, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Fulton County, Georgia for the provision of animal control services and to authorize execution of the same.
Have a motion by Dr. Kelly. Is there a second? Been moved by Dr. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2023-354, an intergovernmental agreement with Fulton County for the provision of animal control services. Any discussion?
Another question
Dr.
about
Kelly.
animal control. Just to be clear, animal control will address animal issues that are on private property, correct?
Yes,
like
correct.
within the home, et cetera.
Correct.
Okay. And we have no way of knowing how many of our calls are misplaced. Like perhaps it's about a dead animal, and we have no way of knowing that, really.
We have not been able to get that level of transparency into these numbers.
Okay.
As the mayor mentioned, I've been having multiple conversations with the other North Fulton managers on this topic. There have been a number of requests filed trying to reconcile the numbers, and we have not been able to get to that. But we are doing our best to.
Okay, because I don't think I even realized that they don't do the dead animals. So, yeah. Thank you.
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
So this has raised an interesting question. If I have an animal problem, I call our 911 services or our call center. Does our call center then call Fulton County and say, you take care of this, or do we, or am I better off sending everybody to Fulton County directly, or am I better off having everybody come to our services? What's a better way of doing this so as to not have confusion about who's getting the call and who's doing what? What's the best way to do this?
You can do both. So if someone prefers to call 911, Chatcom will either give the caller the number for animal control or attempt to route the call directly there. We have residents, though, however, that call directly to animal control now. So However is easiest for them to get the assistance, we want them to do that. Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-354, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with Fulton County for the provision of animal control services. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Excuse me, this is agenda item number 2023-355. Consideration to accept the settlement and purchase of fee simple right-of-way, temporary construction easements, and permanent easement for property rights and interests located at 280 Hildebrand Drive, Fulton County, Georgia. That's tax parcel number 17008900070399. And for the acceptance of all deeds associated with the transaction as it relates to the Johnson's Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway intersection improvement project, presented by City Attorney Danley.
Mr. Lee.
Mayor, Council, this is one of 5 properties we're bringing to you tonight as a settlement of the aforementioned TS 191 project. In order to meet the scheduling guidelines and timetable for letting the bid, we filed with your authority a condemnation for this property, 280 Hildebrand Drive, which is just around the corner here. It's owned by a joint venture made up of 22 different people. It's called the Balconies. It's what I would call a baby REIT, and I say this with all due respect. Only 20 of those could agree on anything, and so that's one reason we had to file the condemnation. All kidding aside, it's a very unique piece of property in and of itself, but one of the main problems is that it is being used as a temporary construction site for more than just the area in front of it. So that's one reason the pricing is different. The city's appraisal was $225,800. The owner's appraisal was $530,000. Through negotiation and projected settlement amount of $310,000, we would recommend the Mayor and Council allow us to conclude the litigation and settle the matter for $310,000.
You've heard the report of the city attorney. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-355 to accept the settlement and purchase of fee simple right-of-way, temporary construction easements, and a permanent easement for property rights and interests located at 280 Hildebrand Drive, Fulton County, Georgia, tax parcel number 17-0089-0007-039-9, and for the acceptance of all deeds and associated with the transaction as it relates to the Johnson Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway intersection improvement project.
A motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second? Been moved by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2023-355, accept the settlement and purchase of fee simple right-of-way, temporary construction easements, and a permanent easement for property rights located at 280 Hildebrand Drive. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-355, a purchase of the temporary or fee simple right-of-way, temporary construction easement, permanent easement for property at 280 Hildebrand Drive. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-356. This is consideration to accept the settlement and purchase of fee simple right-of-way and temporary construction easement for property rights and interests located at 4968 Roswell Road, Fulton County, Georgia. That's tax parcel ID number 17-0093-0002-1842. And for the acceptance of all deeds associated with the transaction as it relates to the CDBG Roswell Road Sidewalks Project, also presented by City Attorney Danley.
Mr. Lee.
Mayor, Council, this property is at 4968 Roswell Road. It is the Citgo station that is located in front of Fountain Oaks Shopping Center. This project has long since been completed. If you've been by there, you'll see that they have demolished the Citgo station or have a permit to rebuild it, a brand new facility. The property had a problem in that there was a curb cut that belonged to Fountain Oaks that the Citgo owner insisted they owned, and that's what tied it up in litigation for 3 years. And here we are with a proposed settlement of an additional $20,000 over and above the $75,600 that the appraiser had us pay into court in order to file the condemnation. We'd recommend that we settle the matter for $95,600.
You heard the report of the city attorney. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr.
I
Baumann.
move adoption of agenda item 2023-356, I think this is. Request to accept the settlement and purchase of fee simple right-of-way, temporary construction easement for property at 4968 Roswell Road.
Have a motion by Mr. Baumann. Is there a second? Moved by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2023-356, accepting the settlement and purchase fee simple right-of-way and a temporary construction easement for property located at 4968 Roswell Road. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-356, the settlement and purchase of fee simple right-of-way and temporary construction easement at 4968 Roswell Road. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-357, consideration to accept the settlement and purchase of fee simple right-of-way for property rights and interests located at 405 Johnson's Ferry Road, Fulton County, Georgia. That's tax parcel number 17-0071-0001-0189. And for the acceptance of all deeds associated with the transaction as it relates to the Johnson's Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway Intersection Improvement Project, presented by City Attorney Danley.
Mr. Lee.
Mayor, Council, this is a residential piece of property, and as you all have pointed out many times, there's a great complication when we delve into people's homes and for taking a property for the public good, and this is one of a great example of that. This road, TS 191, moves approximately 7 feet closer to this home that is already fairly close to the current right-of-way with a entry and exit driveway. It was further complicated in that the appraisal that we commissioned, or that our contractor commissioned, did not give any value to the change in proximity to the roadway. The original appraisal was $43,000. After questioning that lack of proximity change, the appraiser came back with $103,000. The conversation had been tainted at that point with the property owner, and we had to, with your permission, file the condemnation in order to keep the project on schedule. The appraisal of the homeowner is approximately $200,000. Our recommendation to you tonight is that we can end the litigation with the payment of an additional $47,000 for a total of $150,000 to the homeowner. We'd recommend that council authorize that.
You've heard the report of the city attorney. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-357 to accept the settlement and purchase of fee simple right-of-way for property rights and interests located at 405 Johnson Ferry Road, Fulton County, Georgia, tax parcel number 17-0071-0001-018-9, and for the acceptance of all deeds associated with the transaction as it relates to the Johnson Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway Intersection Improvement Project.
You've got a motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second? Been moved by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2023-357, the settlement and purchase of fee simple right-of-way and interest located at 405 Johnson Ferry Road. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-357, accepting the settlement and purchase of fee simple right-of-way located at 405 Johnson Ferry Road. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-358, consideration to accept the purchase of fee simple right-of-way, temporary construction easements, and a permanent easement for property rights and interests located at 6300 Glen Oaks Lane, Fulton County, Georgia. That's tax parcel ID number 17-0071-0007-0506, and for the acceptance of all deeds associated with the transaction as it relates to the Mount Vernon Highway Corridor Improvement Project, presented by City Attorney Danley.
Mr. Lee.
Mayor, Council, this is another unique property. This is the property at the intersection of Glen Ridge and Mount Vernon. And everybody goes by there, you'll notice the distinctive brick wall and the massive numbers of landscaping along the way there. This property belongs to the estate of Miss Louise Hall, who, a fine lady, been living here a long, long time. She passed away last week at the age of, I think, 94. 94 years of age. This property is unique for a couple of reasons. One, many of you have dealt with HOA before. When this development was done, normally an HOA has common area, and the common area is where they would put buffers like that brick wall and the plantings that are on the inside of the right-of-way on the private property. In this particular case, the HOA or the developer saw fit to not have common area, but to have a covenant that ran with the deeds that required that if the HOA wanted to place buffers, plantings, and the wall or a wall on a member's property, they could do it. And so that worked fine for them until the city showed up to take the interests and compensate for interest taken. The HOA had no interest. So we've spent all this time debating with the HOA about who is at risk here. Ms. Hall and the good work of her attorney have helped put together an agreement with the HOA, albeit Ms. Hall has and her estate has the title to the property. The offer of settlement we have in front of you, we had appraisals at $240,000, most of which is about half of that is the actual property that's being taken to cut the corner there for the change in the road, and the other half is for the change in landscape. One other problem with this is that this won't get done probably for another year and a half. So because this is a residential property, this offer of settlement builds into that a 10% a year increase in the cost of these plants. So it adds about 20% to the cost of the settlement in order to make the property owners, in this case, the estate of Ms. Hall and the HOA whole. Another problem we have is that this HOA doesn't have a full-time employee, so the price pretty much has to match a contract to do the work, so that it would be the number that we give them or that we pay to them will compensate for the actual work that has to be done. And their number was upwards of $400,000, and the offer of settlement that we have in front of you tonight is $370,000. And we would recommend to you that you accept that as a settlement of this complicated litigation.
You've heard the report of the city attorney. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-358 to accept the purchase of fee simple right-of-way, temporary construction easements, and a permanent easement for property rights and interests located at 6300 Glen Oaks Lane, Fulton County, Georgia, tax parcel number 17-0071-007-0506, and for the acceptance of all deeds associated with the transaction as it relates to the Mount Vernon Highway Corridor Improvement Project.
Got a motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second? Second. Been moved by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve agenda item 2023-358, purchase of fee simple right-of-way, temporary construction easement, and permanent easement at 6300 Glen Oaks Lane. Any discussion? Ms. Rochelle.
Is there a requirement for them to put it back the way it was? You talk about all the expenses of the plants and the cost of replanting and all that. Do they have to do that?
As far as the city goes, they do not. But I would submit to you that the covenants and restrictions that they have with the HOA, they will, because they have reached an agreement with the HOA. That what we
So it's with the
are
HOA.
paying in just and adequate compensation will alleviate the problem. That the cold thing to do would have been to go in and negotiate a deal and then leave Ms. Hall to fight with the HOA. But what we've done is that the lawyer for the HOA and the lawyer for Ms. Hall have reached an agreement that the funds will be used to satisfy the covenants and restrictions that apply to the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-358, purchase of fee simple right-of-way, temporary construction easement, and permanent easements at 6300 Glen Oaks Lane. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-359. This is consideration to approve and accept the settlement and dismissal of the civil action style, the Lamar Company LLC versus City of Sandy Springs, and to authorize the mayor to execute the settlement agreement and release. Presented by City Attorney Dan Lee.
Mr. Lee.
Mayor, Council, this is a different ask of you tonight. We have a lawsuit that's been in place for about 2 years dealing with the Lamar Billboard Company, and it involves the LED electronic billboard on 285 at Roswell Road. About 2 years ago, the billboard operator contacted the city suggesting that they had had complaints from the condo owners there at the billboard wanting to raise the billboard. It turned out that not all the condo owners were complaining, not all the condo owners wanted the billboard raised. It turns out that the DOT saw fit to put a sound barrier there, and it became obvious that the billboard company knew the sound barrier was going up. And oddly enough, at the wee hours of the night at the legislature, they passed a law that said that if the Georgia DOT puts up a sound barrier and the owner of any billboard affected by the sound barrier asks for a variance and is not granted one, then the local government that doesn't grant the variance has to pay just and adequate compensation for any property loss of the billboard company. The billboard company sought to invoke that. Upon good advice, you denied the claim. Our ordinances don't allow billboards. Our ordinances do not allow variances to billboards. And thus the billboard company sued us under that statute that we believe and still do is very much unconstitutional. We have that issue before the Superior Court of Fulton County, and it has been before the Superior Court of Fulton County now almost for the entire 2 years that the lawsuit has been filed, awaiting for an answer. Let me go back a little bit in history. That billboard exists because when the city was formed, and when the word got out that the legislature was actually going to pass a law to allow Sandy Springs to be formed, a group of billboard companies rushed down to Fulton County and gained about 57 billboard permits. My predecessor filed a lawsuit to stop that, and that lawsuit went on for a long time. And a settlement agreement reached in federal court allowed for about 14 billboards. This LED billboard is one of them. So in order to change that lawsuit, or a lawsuit has to amend that. What we bring to you tonight is a combination of issues that are a little bit unorthodox in settling lawsuits, but I would submit to you it brings to the city certain items that we cannot get if we win the lawsuit. If we continue the litigation and go to court, which is fully insured for the defense by our insurance carrier, we know that the billboard company is locked in to say that the billboard is worth $2 million. We have $1 million insurance coverage. So if we lost, the billboard would not move, it would not change, it'd stay where it is behind the sound barrier. The city would have to pay $1 million to the billboard company. If we won, the court would determine that the statute is unconstitutional. We might get attorney's fees, which you're not out any attorney's fees on this lawsuit because the insurance company has been covering it. So the proposal of settlement has a list of things that I submit to you that, but let me back up. What the billboard company wants is to raise the billboard. If they win the lawsuit, they will not be able to raise the billboard. They'll only get that just and adequate compensation that that statute talks about that we know is $2 million. The proposal before you tonight gives to the city a couple of things that we have no other mechanism for getting. One of them is the billboard company would take down 2 billboards. One in the, I get these numbers wrong every time, 6400, 6390 area of Roswell Road and 8400 area of Roswell Road. We have no other mechanism for removing those billboards other than a consent agreement reached as we're proclaiming tonight. During that awful fight, and I get this historic knowledge from my historic predecessor, the city spent a lot of money to stop the proliferation of billboards at the birth of the city. This $100,000 is a compensation to the city to make up for that. That's where that cost comes in. to make the city whole. One other added gain from this is that the billboard that is on 285, there now exists technology, and it's displayed on the screen up here. We've had staff through the really wonderful GIS department here model the use of this screening that would be part of this consent agreement. And this screening would be required to be on the LED billboard for the life of the billboard. We believe that it gives greater coverage, greater protection to the neighborhoods after it is raised over and above what it is right now, if you raise it 24 feet, which is the main part of the consent agreement that we would grant to the billboard company. It would allow that the city could have access to some advertisements, public service, or otherwise to the billboard, and but it would raise it 24 feet. It's with and I say this with not a heavy heart, but I've been practicing law 38 years, and this is the first time I've ever participated in a consent agreement with a billboard company. And I say that just to let you know how strongly I believe in this recommendation. When I started representing the city, I anecdotally heard from different members that I interviewed with, and one thing I heard was, we sure would like to get rid of the strip clubs. I sent a picture today to my predecessor of the 3 areas where the strip clubs formerly were, and they've all 3 been demolished. One other comment I heard is that we here in Sandy Springs suffer with some aerial blight because of billboards. The traffic thoroughfare that is the heart of Sandy Springs, Roswell Road, has these billboards that, as I told you, because the life of the world of billboards is frozen, we don't have an ordinance for or against them. They'll always be there. Back in the old days, they used to make them out of timbers, and you could wait for them to rot. Now they don't even rot anymore. This is an opportunity to rid Sandy Springs of those 2 billboards. And again, I would submit to you that is something that we have no other mechanism to get. And the lawsuit would be dismissed. With every piece of litigation that is filed, I'd be remiss if I told you we were 100% guaranteed to win. Feel very strongly about it. I think with the managed lanes that are about to go up, there'll be more sound barriers. This statute will be challenged again, not in Sandy Springs, not by this plaintiff, because that's part of this agreement here, they will not bring this again. I suspect we'll see one in Roswell very, very soon on contesting this issue. But the lawsuit would be dismissed. Litigation would be over with. Based on that, Mayor, I recommend that you allow us to enter into this consent agreement.
You've heard the report of the city attorney. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Baumann.
I move adoption of agenda item 2023-359, request to approve the settlement agreement, settlement dismissal of the civil action of Lamar Company versus City of Sandy Springs.
Motion by Mr. Baumann. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2023-359, a settlement and dismissal of the civil action style of the Lamar Company, LLC v. City of Sandy Springs. All in favor of them, are there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-359, approving and accepting the settlement and dismissal of civil action style Lamar Company v. City of Sandy Springs. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-360. This is consideration to approve and accept the transfer of property from Fulton County to the City of Sandy Springs, to accept all deeds associated with the transaction, to authorize the mayor and city manager to execute all documentation to facilitate the transfer as it relates to the Johnson's Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway intersection improvement project. Presented by City Attorney Danley.
Mr. Lee.
I feel almost like Marty Martin having to do all this all in a row. That's high praise. I saved the best condemnation settlement for the last. I probably should have put it right after the animal control contract. the transfer of property. The Fulton County Library is in the path of TS 191 and 192. The city requires properties on both sides of the library. In negotiation with our city manager and the county manager, they have reached a proposal that I bring to you tonight that Fulton County would transfer without any money transfer. They would gift to the city the property necessary for this project. Part of the ask of the city is that we take possession of and responsibility for a small piece of property that is on Peachtree Dunwoody at the city limits as you come north on Peachtree Dunwoody. On the left coming north, you'll see it's on the left. There are three big white houses right there, and there's a little, they straightened out the road or made it less crooked. It's still crooked. But we take possession and responsibility for that piece of property, which I submit to you we probably should because it's part of a roadway. We have to redo the sign for Fulton County, and that's about it. It's a value to the city of $1 million. And I've been representing you a while now, and I think this is the first time I can tell you that Fulton County has come close to delivering $1 million to the city. Well, we recommend that you allow us to enter into this agreement with Fulton County.
Yeah. All right, you've heard the report of the city attorney. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-360, to accept the transfer of property from Fulton County to the city of Sandy Springs, to accept all deeds associated with the transaction, and to authorize the mayor and city manager to execute all documentation to facilitate the transfer as it relates to the Johnson Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway intersection improvement project.
Motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second? Been moved by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve agenda item 2023-360, the acceptance of the transfer of property from Fulton County to the city of Sandy Springs, related to the Fulton County Library for the Johnson Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway intersection improvement project. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-360, accepting the transfer of property from Fulton County to the city of Sandy Springs to facilitate the transfer as it relates to the Johnson Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway intersection project related to the Fulton County Library. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. For his swan song,
All right.
I present to you.
Oh, excuse me, please.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk. I'm just teasing the outgoing Parks Director.
This is agenda item number 2023-363, consideration of a resolution to authorize a change order to amend the construction contract with JHC Corporation to construct the Morgan Falls Connector Trail 2A project, that's P2201, and to authorize the city manager to execute the change order, presented by Director of Recreation and Parks, Michael Perry.
Mr. Perry, you better make it good.
Well, it won't be quick, so my apologies. And this is not the kind of agenda item I would ever wish to have been my swan song. So, not good. So, but thank you, sir. The item before you tonight is a change order request from our Trail 2A contractor, JHC Corporation, in the amount of $388,600.32. This work was required to mitigate rock encounter to build the pillars of the elevated boardwalk over Orkin Lake as part of Springway Trail 2A project. These conditions were not discovered during initial geotechnical testing. The change order request was vetted by city project management staff as well as our project managers with the Path Foundation. The recommended change order request was a result of a collaboration between the contractor and discussions and somewhat negotiations with our combined management staff. Specifically, the change order request is for additional work performed by the vendor through the end of this past October. There will be additional change order requests for work performed in the months of November, December. So again, this change order we're talking about is through October only. Once vetted with our project managers, the additional items will be presented to Mayor and City Council for consideration at a future time. Moving forward, the city will seek additional geotechnical testing beginning in early January to help identify any further rock conditions in the lake. This data will provide insight into additional cost moving forward for the completion of the boardwalk segment of the trail. The change order does not include a final number of additional work days requested by the contractor. That also will be something that will be brought for Mayor and Council's consideration in the future. I know you probably have a whole lot of questions on this, and we will do our very best to try to answer that. I have myself and Steve Ciaccio, our project manager, are here, and we will do everything we can do to answer your questions.
All right, I'm going to before we get a motion on this, I'm going to give council some leeway to ask some questions before we try and take unofficial action. So if you have some questions about the report by the Director of Recreation and Parks, I'm going to provide you that opportunity before we make a motion. Any questions?
Sure. May I?
Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, sir.
So this covers us through October,
Yes, sir.
and you said in October they were going to evaluate alternatives, and as a result, they still don't know what the final date of completion with this would be, how long the project's going to be extended, and what else are they going to find, and what else they are going to find during this additional investigation. So we're approving this, but we really don't know what the end isn't really in sight yet.
We do not know what. We know that the November, December additional funding is $85,000 to $90,000. I forget the number. It was $84,000, $94,000. But that was just recently generated, so it was not part of this change order request.
Do we have any more certainty about the outcome now that it's end of December?
Well, let me tell you. Let me see if I can do my best to simplify to give you a picture of this. The trail, the boardwalk length is approximately 3,000 linear feet. The contractor went probably 1,100, 1,200 feet with no encumbrance. Nothing came up. There were no trouble laying the pillars. There was nothing to it. At about the 1,200 linear footage, they encountered unforeseen rock that literally would not drill and took a tremendous amount of time to go that depth. And that probably went on for 200 to 300 linear feet, which would roughly put us at about the 1,500 to 1,600 linear feet, which of 3,000 linear feet, we're somewhere near the middle. In speaking with the contractor and looking at additional geotechnical work that we have had done within the last couple of weeks, a month, it looks like the difficult area is behind us based on what they know. You know, it's a murky lake. There's siltation. It's hard to measure anything. Let me stay on track. So we're about halfway done with the project. So we've had a further conversation with the vendor. Potentially moving forward, it could be another $300,000 or $400,000, like we are asking for now, for the other half, which could be mitigated to our favor by $100,000 to $200,000 of credits that they foresee for other work that was not performed and is not necessary. And again, some of that geotechnical investigation that we're going to be doing will help determine the days, but we may be looking at 7 to 8 additional months from now. Per the original contract, we should be finishing the contract now, but we are beyond that, and we may be looking at 7 or 8 more months of construction. But we don't know that, so we want to do a little bit more work before we bring you back better information. But these people did this work before October, and it's time to compensate them for what they have done.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Rochelle.
Thanks, Mike. So you said that the hardest part is behind us, but you said there's 7 or 8 more months to go.
because of the work that they have done has put them behind in other projects, and it's also slowed down the progress that they would have made on this boardwalk. Because even the boardwalk that we're building is not the complete boardwalk. We're just laying the footing, the foundation, the bottom board. Additional people have to come back and put the planking, the surface on there, and handrails and things. So it's back them up.
And so, okay, so 3,000 square, how much have we spent so far on the 1,500 linear feet?
I don't know how much that.
I'm just trying to figure out how much the next how much we've spent, and then how much the next 1,500 you think is going to be.
Well, somebody can correct me behind me that may have more data. I want to say the lump sum to build the bridge, the bridging part, the boardwalking part, if I'm not mistaken, total is $1 million.
How much?
Right around $1 million just for that portion of the project. So half of it would be $500,000.
Mayor, could I?
Yes, please, sir.
Inject something in trying to helping the Parks and Rec negotiate a path forward in the contract. We quickly determined that the project is about 61. Take aside the change order, is about 61% complete, and the city has only paid out about 56% of the budgeted amount for the project, notwithstanding outside of the change order. So the city is not underwater, if you will, with the project itself. It is on target with money related to the construction. The issue that Mike is bringing to you has to do with the time that he will bring it. He won't, but somebody will bring next time is the change for the time. They should have been done by now, but they spent 120 days of drilling that they could have spent 120 days of finishing the project. And they'll be back once we figure out what that addendum looks like for a change order for days. But this is for work that has already been done, for the extra work and the unforeseen circumstances found subsoil that the contract allows for them to seek a change order and get paid for.
Okay. So we're approving for what's already been done. But we don't know how much it's going to cost to continue.
With certainty, we do not. We will go in and do additional testing and get data to give us a better understanding. But
what about changing
know.
the path of it, reducing the amount of the boardwalk and moving the path? What are the options for doing that?
Well, and we've done that.
Cost?
We've done that. We've moved it horizontally to get it further away from the middle of the water and closer toward the shoreline. With the thought being, we're moving closer to terra firma. We're getting closer to soil to move it in a little bit closer toward the shoreline, which we have had tested, and the testing confirms that we will have a much better chance of not having to do additional rock work the closer we get to the shoreline. But we're constrained a little bit by our encroachment agreement onto that property owner. And I don't remember if that's Georgia Power or Fulton County at that location.
So, last question. The 7 to 8 months additional work.
Yes.
How long was it supposed to take to begin with?
A year.
A year. So then it's almost going to be double then, close to maybe 3/4 more just because of the time? Is that?
I think that's probably accurate.
So you're going to bring us a change order for $750,000?
We don't know what the number will be yet. We believe that it will be another $84,000 and likely another $300,000 to $400,000 to finish it off.
That's right.
And the funding that we have here is a blend of fund sources. Some of it is a grant. We have a $3 million grant from GOSIP, which is through DNR and GFA, and that's $3 million again. And then the remainder of it is a combination of local funds and then a $30,000 donation from the Sandy Springs Conservancy.
All right, we're going to take another couple of questions, then we're going to make a motion. I want to make sure everybody had some information before they did. Mr. Mueller, then Mr. Bauman, and then Mr. DiGiulio, and then somebody's got to make a motion one way or another.
So, Michael, question on, so we're truing up the work that's already been done. We're sitting in December. So I think that going forward, to the new person, we probably need to look at how our vendors managing the budget. I'm just saying that they basically did work without they went over their budget. Is that correct?
They submitted requests for requests, and we responded to that after conversation and meetings with our PATH folks. And, we had to make decisions to allow them to continue to work, or in our estimation, it would only cost more money. It's expensive for them to demobilize, mobilize back. Getting the people who are doing the boardwalk is a company that's out of Florida. They're the leader in the Southeast for doing this. They're in Florida. They come and work 10 days, and then they go back home for like 5 days, and they'll come back for 10 days. So when they leave, they're gone, and they probably have other work. So it's a matter of, listen, it only costs more money not to make decisions, and unfortunately we have to true that up with council after the fact.
Yeah, I just think we just need to be, I think, a little more proactive on that going forward. And then something else to explore is many times vendors will do something called a work at risk, so they can continue working. But that's another. I don't know if we have that process in place, but that's something to consider.
Well, I think there are a lot of lessons learned here. We certainly addressed this a little bit with council, in some workshop opportunities. This is probably something that probably on a monthly basis there needs to be an update on our end. So that's my fault for not maybe pushing that forward a little bit. So my recommendation would be that every month there's some information, as we do on transportation projects, periodically to monthly, quarterly, kind of give you an update, so that this is a big number. You're coming up here with $388,000 worth of ask. That's a lot of money. I didn't want to come up here and do this, but
we noticed you tried to escape today.
It's been a long day, trust me. But again, I don't like doing that. I don't like that, because I know I understand what your jobs are, and we vetted this. Do we feel like the contractor's putting something over on us? Absolutely not. But still, that's a big number, and it's something that I should have helped educate you better on earlier than this. So completely my apologies.
Mr. Baumann.
I'm assuming in my question contractor good faith. Okay. I mean, if there's any reason that there's not contractor good faith, it would change the question. So it doesn't sound like we have a lot of choice here. I mean, they've done the work, whether the council approves it or not. I mean, I guess we do have a choice, but they weren't working in the dark here. They were informing the city along the way, and we were going along with it. So this has to be paid. So here's my question, though. Do we know a worst case? Has anybody kind of considered a financial worst case here? And Dan, you seem to indicate that we're not out of budget when this is all said and done, or maybe I misinterpreted you. Okay, okay. So it is not. We're going to be best case. I'd like to know worst case, and best case we're going to be over budget, right? Here.
Be over the initial bid. So worst case is what I was just describing a few moments ago. There'll be another change order for $84,000, and we believe another change order after that in the $300,000 to $400,000 net range. Michael was describing there is approximately $200,000 in preliminary savings that we have been informed of by the contractor because of some work that was not needed to be done. Turned out to be a smaller section. We have an engineering geotech consultant coming out the first week of January. We're going to stake the remaining portion of the boardwalk, and they are actually going to go out and core in that area and determine how much additional drilling would be needed.
But there are still unknowns, right?
There may be.
Okay,
yes.
So we don't know. I mean, I think we have an educated guess at the worst case.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an alternative that would give us more certainty? that might, go ashore, or, we end up with a fishing pier and then go ashore on this? Is there an alternative that we have to consider? I'm trying to figure out what our options are here.
That's part of our
I
conversation.
kind of want to know what the recommendation and the options are.
That's part of our conversation, and that's why we are having the geotech consultant come out and core in the areas that the boardwalk would continue. If they find that there is additional rock that is going to cause additional extensive cost increases, we're going to bring back an
All right,
alternative
so last
to move
question.
it.
Mayor, we have a agenda item to approve money for work that's been done. Okay. But are we as a council in a position where we're always going to be behind on what we can weigh in on option wise? Or when do we ever get to get in front of it? Or is this it tonight? By the nature of the mayor allowing us in an extraordinary manner to ask questions before a motion, I'm trying to figure out whether we actually have some policy options tonight where we could give some direction to go, go in a different direction. I'm not really sure what our posture is here, other than, I know we have to approve, or if we're going to continue to be in an arrears sort of situation, or if tonight's the night that we have an opportunity to do something.
To answer your question, no, we're not going to be in arrears going forward. We've had this conversation with staff over the last few days since this came to light, and it's not acceptable, it's not ideal, and it will not be how this project operates going forward.
All right. Mr. DiGiulio, then somebody's got to make a motion up or down.
Of the money we still have to come on here, we have other partners in this project. Is it all coming from us? Is it coming on a pro rata basis? What are the dynamics of the money situation here? Where is it coming from? Who's paying it?
So the GOSIP grant that I mentioned earlier, the Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program grant, that's $3 million. We have thus far paid JHC $3,588,000. Of that $3,588,000, we have submitted requests for reimbursement to GOSIP DNR in the amount of $1,899,000. That leaves approximately $1.2 million that would still be due once we continue the project to come in from GOSIP.
What about from the PATH? Aren't they contributing to this also?
They're contributing program management dollars.
Program management,
In
not
kind
not
dollars.
hard dollars.
In kind, that's correct.
The only other money is from the Conservancy, but it's a very small
But
amount.
that's just a gift from the Conservancy to go ahead and do this. But PATH is not putting any money in this deal.
And this is 1.8 miles?
Yes, 1.87.
All right. You've heard the report. You've had an opportunity to inquire. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Dr. Kelly.
I'll move approval of agenda item 2023-363. This is going to be a change order to amend the construction contract with JHC Corporation to construct the Morgan Falls Connector Trail 2A project, and to authorize the city manager to execute this change order.
Have a motion by Dr. Kelly. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Dr. Kelly, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we approve agenda item 2023-363, a resolution authorizing a change order to amend the construction contract with JHC Corporation to construct the Morgan Falls Connector Trail 2A.
I do have a question.
All right.
Is this when you said we could have should or could have a monthly meeting about this? Is this when we say that we want to require that or request that?
We can make that part of either a work session every month. We can just add it as a standing item for a public work section, or we can do another version of updates. We do have periodic updates on this every week in the weekend review as well.
So on the weekend review, you get detailed about,
Mr. DiGiulio.
Mr. Mayor, since we have incorporated Sandy Springs in 2005, we have never backed away from a financial obligation. And that, of course, was one of our founding principles is responsible fiscal management. So I don't see how we can back away from this. I think we have to go ahead and admit that we didn't do our proper due diligence or our due diligence was wrong, whatever, but I think we have to go ahead and approve this. We cannot not live up to our obligations.
No, but it was unusual enough that I wanted to give council more latitude than normal. So, all right. Any further discussion? Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So, in my experience with projects like this, the subsurface unknowns is what's driving everybody nuts here and driving the costs up. So I ask that this geotechnical investigation be complete down the entire length so that we come back with as much known as can be known before we turn this contractor loose to go digging again. And at that point in time, we'll know. And if he finds no more surprises, well, then the rest of the contract lines up with what the cost originally was estimated. But before we go spending any significant money on construction, let's at least get a good understanding of what the unknowns that we're faced with now, actually what the knowns actually are regarding that.
100%.
So, okay? Then come back to us.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-363, a resolution authorizing a change order to amend the construction contract with JHC Corporation to construct the Morgan Falls Connector Trail 2A. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved.
Thank you, Michael.
Well, that brings us to a close. And Mr. Perry is so delighted. He's not going to have to look at us again on this issue.
I would love to come back as long as I get the meal and time to spend. I'll come back anytime.
Michael, yeah, we had a little bit of difficulty with this, but you've done a phenomenal job for us over the last 7 years. And I want to go on record. We said a lot of things today during your retirement party, but thank you for your service to this community, your marvelous attitude in dealing with so many different people, dealing with some of the most dangerous people on the planet, parents with children. But you've done a magnificent job. Our facilities are much better today than when you arrived, and a lot of that is attributable to your leadership. Clearly, you got a team of people you've worked with. But again, thank you. Have a great retirement. But come back and see us from time to time. We'll actually even let you come eat.
I loved every moment of it.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. All right, we're down to reports. I don't have a lot to report other than to say, as you know, I've been working on a task force with GMA on Lost and SDS, trying to figure it out. We are expecting a report or some legislation to come about kind of refining the Lost negotiation process coming out of the legislature. There's a hearing by the legislature on Thursday looking at legislation on the SDS. I don't expect a lot of changes about that other than it will require at some level the Department of Department of Community Affairs to do something they haven't really done in about 20 years, which is force those communities who have no SDS agreement to either get an agreement done or forsake their ability to receive some of the money that we have voted on tonight, like LMIG and other state and federal grants that come through the state, would be lost. And that would greatly affect the city of Sandy Springs because we do not have an SDS and never have had an SDS since the creation of the city. The dispute, everybody else in Fulton County would be affected by the county and all 15 cities if this were to come about, all because we have not been able to reach agreement with the city of Atlanta on water. We will provide a little bit more information later about some steps that we're trying to get that done. But be that as it may, I expect that the legislature is going to tell the Department of Community Affairs that they cannot no longer, there'll be limited ability to provide abeyance or to forbear those, and there's several, it's not just us, but there's several. So it's going to add some impetus to some of the service delivery negotiations in Fulton County over the next 8 to 12 months, I would guess. So anyway, we met with the Metro Atlanta Mayors Association, met with the governor's staff this past week, going through getting ready for the legislature, laying out the agenda that the mayors from the metro area, which is the executive committee. I'm the vice chair of the Mayors Association. And so we briefed the governor's staff on all of the issues that are important to us, SDS loss being near the top of the list, but also the possibility of some tax changes that would facilitate a solution to some of the water issues, not only for us but others. So we got a good reception from the governor's staff. No guarantees, but they were very attentive in listening. So it was a cordial meeting, and it was good that we had mayors from most of the cities, our counties, cities in each county were there. So we laid that out, and we're getting ready for the legislature. They're coming in about 3 weeks. So lock up the women and children and the pets and everything else. Liberty is at risk, as they used to say. All right, Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I realize that something happened tonight that has not happened in 14 years. We've got an audit report that had no findings and no issues, right, and none of us said a word about it. So I'm going to correct that right now. City manager and our finance big cheese right here, and all of your staff, thank you very much for delivering a report that had no issues, no findings. In fact, I was waiting for the guy to hit us with like the punchline. There's no punchline. So thank you very much. Great job, and I wanted to let you know it was not unnoticed.
Right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, the October financials, talking about money. Ms. Carlisle.
Good evening. So the auditor didn't find anything, which is great, but we found something in our October financials. Okay, so we're at 33.33% of the year. Revenues are at 29.68%, and expenditures are at 22.14% of the budget. We're 4 months into the fiscal year, and we've received 19% of our property taxes, 31% of our local option sales taxes, and 31% of our motor vehicle taxes, and 112% of our budgeted insurance premium tax. As of this report, expenditures continue to trend as expected, with the exception of the salaries being omitted from this report for mayor and council, as well as the communications and T-card expenses. Those items are in the system. They just were not posted at the time of this report. That concludes the financial report for October.
All right. Any questions of the Chief Financial Officer? All right. Thank you. We do need an executive. Oh.
I had one minor staff report, not really minor.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to take this moment to introduce our new Recreation and Parks Director, Brent Walker. He came back for his second day today, and he is here tonight at the end of our council meeting. So we are super excited to have Brent come on board with the city. We are confident he's going to do a fantastic job, and he's going to have lots of fun with Trail 2A and many other projects. So.
Well, Michael cleaned it up for him before he turned it over to him, so that's good. That's right.
Dunwoody. Brent was with the city of Dunwoody for 13 years, served as their Parks and Recreation Director there.
Moving on up. All right. We need a motion to suspend regular order and move into executive session.
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move we do just that. Suspend regular order, move into executive session for the purposes of real estate and litigation.
Motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we suspend regular order and move into executive session for the purposes of real estate and litigation. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on executive session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We're in executive session. All right, let me get to the right page. Make sure I got my notes right. All right, Mr. Paulson. Mr. Paulson moves that we close the regular session, the executive session, return to regular order. Seconded by Mr. DiGiulio. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on the return to regular order. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We're back in regular order. Mr. DiGiulio moves adjournment, seconded by Mr. Paulson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, no. We are adjourned at 9:28.
And we are halfway through 4 years.
Yep.